What's good, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle-earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you are listening to this show on. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at ProAnt. No underscores there, just PROANT. In this Tuesday, March 11 edition of Disguise Coverage, we will be diving into the start of free agency for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of activity, not necessarily from a new addition standpoint, but there are a couple new additions, a couple re-signings, several extensions that happened over the weekend and going into Sunday night before legal tampering started. So there's money conversations to be had, roster conversations to be had, guys that seemed like really good potential targets that went elsewhere, guys that signed elsewhere for money at positions of need that it looks like the Bills potentially could have afforded. Questions, thoughts, comments, concerns. We will be diving into all of that tonight in this episode. And as always, as we do here on the show, making it as engaging as possible for you live viewers who are riding with us live. I know how this time of year between free agency and the draft, there are a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings that go into all of it. So anything, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, throw it up into the chat. We obviously have a run of show here tonight, but I want to make this episode as open and as engaging as possible. Again, even though we do that here normally, but even more so given the time of year and where we are in this off-season schedule. So questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, throw them up into the chat on anything and everything. Super chats get priority. 1, because I respect the monetary donation. 2, because the color attracts me like a cat and takes me away from my notes. I'm not alone. Hope you would have gathered that if you have seen the social post that just went out about 40 seconds ago, and or because I kept saying we. And the reason I kept saying we is because I'm not alone on this episode. I brought this person on to kind of set the table in a multitude of ways for this offseason. And now that the table has started to get certain things placed upon it and or removed, thought it made sense to bring this person back and continue on this journey together. I am joined once again by Mr. Kendall Mirsky. Kendall, this is not your first time here. It's not your first rodeo. I appreciate you. You're fantastic. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Yeah, happy to be back. I completely agree with that intro of like, it's really good timing to get me back because we just talked about like targets and
sorry, I saw this comment from Jason. He said the unaging one, the only Kendall. I like
hope
that
one.
Stays
the
true.
Ageless I hope that stays true. But yeah, we talked like a month and a half or so ago. Like, what do we want to see in the draft? What do we want to see in free agency? And I think naturally we all kind of start talking about the draft, but free agency happens first in the NFL.
I made a note, like in my head already. I was like, I wonder how easily this conversation tonight pivots and we just talk about draft prospects.
I mean, it's going to happen. It's natural. Like I admittedly haven't done a lot of scouting, but like you still, because the combine is still so fresh. Like what? The combine was like a week and a half ago. Like the combine is so fresh for us. So a lot of these guys are still top of mind, but we got to get through free agency first. And honestly, all these people who've been doing like mock drafts and stuff through the last month or so, it means nothing because free agency sets the table. And especially for this regime, like we've seen it year over year with Brandon Beane, like free agency gives us so many answers for what they're trying to do in the draft because they really don't enter the offseason with this glaring need. I think the only year they did that was the Kyer Elam draft. And I don't know if they want to do that the same way. So like, I think it's going to be a similar offseason where we see them. Yeah, sure. We have a few needs here or there, but we're going to do our best to, plug holes here, plug holes there, whether it's a big signing, whether it's a bargain bin signing. I mean, I think we've probably seen the 2 biggest signings of their free agent class so far. I'd be shocked if we see anything bigger. But yeah, it really gives us more answers into what's going to happen in the draft.
Absolutely. And I like your point there of, how every offseason just aside from which you and I were live when that happened. Aside from the Von Miller signing,
Yeah.
and at like 8:51 back when this show was on a Wednesday. Oh,
Yeah.
it was no, not 8:51. I was going on Wednesdays at 7 before Greg and Aaron. So
Yeah, I was gonna say it was kind of early.
yeah, so it happened at like 6:51 or 6:49, and we were chopping it up in the green room, like going over stuff, and then all of a sudden the news came through. We had to pivot and scramble and all that stuff. But aside from, yeah, we were just ready to talk about like Daquan Jones, and I forget, and
Yeah.
we were just ready to talk about Daquan Jones and what's his face, OJ Howard, and then
Oh
it
my
was
God.
exactly pivot Von Miller. But aside from that one time, every offseason was really kind of just gone according for the Bills. And this is a good year after year. And again, even when we talked about it, just kind of set the table for the offseason this year. This may be a team year in and year out that doesn't necessarily have a ton of like top tier guys or blue chip S tier, A tier type of talent, but year in and year out, they are a pretty thorough roster. They're a pretty roster, and they, like you said, they don't really have a lot of glaring holes. So most off seasons kind of go for the same type of pattern, which is we have some needs that are more upgrades than they are needs or holes, but we don't have a lot of money to do it. So the first couple weeks are like, let's figure out how to get creative monetarily, and then we'll sign a couple value guys, maybe make one splash, but really just kind of fill the holes and then go best player available in the draft based on the positions of need, so on and so forth. I feel like this offseason, as you alluded to, is kind of another one that's fallen in line or lockstep with these previous off seasons, which is why I never expect like, oh man, they're going to go out. I mean, they're going to go out and get T. Higgins. Like, oh, they're going to sign Javon Holland. Actually, Javon Holland didn't really sign for too crazy of a deal. Like, they signed Javon Holland or Justin Reed, like if they wanted to. But usually a lot of deals are like, okay, they're going to sign multiple guys anywhere between like 8 and 12 million AAV, maybe 2, maybe 3 guys, depending on how much money they have, bring some of their guys back, see where the chips fall going forward. And I think, again, this free agency start has continued to fall in line in that way.
I got to tell you, all the extensions that we saw, like the 3 days before free agent. Well, I guess the negotiating period started.
That's Sunday in general, not only for the Bills, but the
not
NFL.
just the
like
Bills.
Once it hit like 5:00 on Sunday, everybody was like extensions.
But for the Bills specifically, like they signed those guys, and to me, what was it? Bernard, Shakir, Rousseau, Allen. I was thinking they're trying to make money for something.
That's what I was.
It's very clear that they're trying to clean up the 2025 books to make space for something. And
they want to bring Diggs back. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, obviously, I think a lot of the fan base was thinking like, ooh, Myles Garrett and like stuff like that. And then obviously the whole thing with the Browns happened, and they're just holding him captive, I guess, for record-setting money, holding him captive. But either way, like it just felt like something could happen, like a Von Miller type of splash could have happened. But they're still playing it smart. Like, obviously, how it played out, you still get 2 guys, and we'll get into it with Michael Hoecht and Josh Palmer. Like, those aren't bargain bin guys. Yeah, sure, they're probably more on the value side than they are the splash side, but like they'll play more significant roles than what we've seen in the past with like Bills free agent signings. I think these 2 specifically, and I don't want to liken it to these guys specifically and their output to the Buffalo Bills, but it kind of reminds me of the spending in the first offseason where they got Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, where like these guys aren't completely bargain bin. I mean, maybe Poyer was at the time, but Micah Hyde wasn't like completely bargain bin. He was valued.
He was sweet. He was more of a slot and a punt returner than he was like a true safety, but he was a name, and he had made a lot of big plays for Green Bay.
He was a name, but for Green Bay specifically, like he entered that free agent period kind of as a budding role player. No one necessarily saw him as like a set it, forget it starter. And I think that's kind of what the Bills are trying to do this offseason with these 2 signings. Sign 2 guys that played a role pretty significant roles, albeit for their teams,
Yeah.
and see if they can bud into something more in Buffalo, because that's always been the culture, be the best version of yourself when you get here. So I like the value, and obviously we'll get into each one specifically, but I like how they attacked it, considering it might not have been their plan A. Like, they could have been making all that money, or moving all that money around with the extensions for something more splashy, but I still like what this potential pivot was.
Yeah. And everything is always within the landscape of how much money they have to spend. Like that, like even my free agency list this year, the target list that I come out with every year is more, it's not necessarily predictive, although Michael Hoecht was on it. It's more what I want them to do, like the direction I'd like for them to go in. My top guy was DJ Jones. My second guy is Dante Fowler. I would still like Dante Fowler. But those are like, okay, the realistic type of splashes they could make. Guys that I think, okay, like based on the AAV. But then you get what the market is giving you. Like I thought, and DJ Jones, actually, I think he got a little more than this, but like for what Palmer signed, like that's what I thought DJ Jones would go for. And then you see the wide receiver market, and it's like, well, that's what Tutu Atwell got, and that's what De'Ami Brown got. And it's like, do you want a receiver? Okay, this is what you got to pay. Okay,
this is what it costs. And he's 25. So it's like,
Yeah, and that's also a part of it. And so it's like, okay, you don't have to pay that, but then you're sitting on the sidelines and you're not getting anybody, or you have to, pivot. I saw what DeMarcus Robinson went for. He was 8th on my list. I think he just signed a 2-year, $9.5 million deal.
One.
Yeah, they happened right before we went live. They had 2 years, $9.5 million with the Niners, $6 million guaranteed. I liked him a lot. I would have signed him for that deal, but you got to put all of it in a pot, and it's okay. The skill set, it's the need, and I feel like we just, as a fan base, I think a lot of it is always like, actually, and the comments here have been really tempered, which I think is nice, but a lot of, and I shouldn't go off of Twitter, especially now with how awful it is in a multitude of ways, but there's just so much like, this sucks, another wasted offseason, another this, and it's like, they don't have the Patriots money. They're not going to go out and get Williams. They're not going to get Carlton. Like, and even the Pats kind of overpaid a little, which they kind of had to. But like,
that's free agency.
Yeah,
like if you have the money in free agency, you overpay. It's just what happens.
That's fair. And if you need guys, and teams know you need guys, they go out, they chase the money, so on and so forth. But I really do think this offseason has kind of gone to plan, and also, there are certain free agents that I would always like to spend more money on because of the known quantity. As much as we love the draft, every draft, 12 minutes, 54 seconds. First flop. I was doing so well.
Not that bad.
So I was doing so well. Shut up, Kendall. The draft, as much as we love it, is such an inexact science. We talk about it all the time. Even the most surefire prospect is not a surefire prospect. So I do prefer known quantity to a certain point.
For sure.
But what you get with the draft is a little bit of, again, there's more risk to it, but the reward is good players plus cost control for term in a certain amount of years. And I think there's something to be said for properly building your team through the draft and using free agency to supplement your needs or kind of masks things a little bit. I shouldn't say mask, supplement, or the auxiliary pieces should come from free agency. And I don't think this is a Bills team that really, unless they fall off the face of the earth, which I doubt they will. And even if they did, you still got Josh Allen's contract, which also puts you in that boat of doing this dance kind of year after year of auxiliary supplemental guys in free agency, maybe one big splash here or there. And then I also wonder too, the Von Miller deal, which I say this as a person who advocated for him being cut this offseason. Well, I advocated, I wanted Bean to go to him and it'd be like, hey, you can stay, but you have to take this team-friendly pay cut, as team-friendly as we want to make it. You got to take it, or we're going to release you. I don't know if being presented in that or not, but I advocated for that move. I was completely fine with it. I think that Von Miller signing was a win because, well, at the end it wasn't, but initially it was. He was as advertised. He was the closer. He was that guy. He was great off the edge. He was hugely impactful. Went down. Obviously, we know what happened for there. Now, the people that come in and they're like, oh, well, they shouldn't have paid that money for a guy that old. Of course, he was going to wear down. He didn't wear down. Yeah, he tore his ACL on a bad field that tons of other younger guys have done as well. So that move was very much a win before he went down.
It's like the Texans with Diggs. It's like
Very
that
fair.
was a win for them.
Absolutely.
Until he got injured. It's not
man.
fair to judge it that way.
No, and he went down, and then, man, he went down, Dell went down, Nico went down. They just could not. And then they traded Tunsil. Just absolutely wild things
and
happened.
Kenyon Green.
Oh, they traded Green? I did not see that. Who did they trade Kenyon Green to?
He's on the Eagles now, so get ready for him to be a Pro Bowler.
I was going to say, so he's going to be an All-Pro at the end of the year.
I mean, they fixed Becton.
Bro, yeah, I would say Stoutland just is
no, that's a smart trade. Smart trade for the Eagles.
That's fair. I wonder with the Vaughn signing, considering how it ended up, because you can make a case either way. I wonder if that makes them feel more, let's not go down that road again.
Skittish about the splashy.
Yes, I was trying to find the right word. This thing came to my mind was prohibitive, and I was like, that's not the right word at all.
It works.
Yeah, does it make them feel a little more gun shy or a little more skittish about doing that kind of deal again? Because Bean even said it as much, right? Like, I remember when they signed him, it was all this conversation about, like, it's not just about this year, it's setting yourself up for the future and having the right money and the right players, yada, yada, so on and so forth, all the things that we know. But I wonder if that deal, considering how it ended up, but also how it started and the legitimate bad luck that happened in it, I wonder if that also pushes them further from not wanting to do a deal like that. Or do they see it as, no, that was a win. We just got, unfortunately, we got some bad luck. But also, even within that, you still put a good chunk of eggs in one basket. And if that basket breaks, so like, I also wonder if that kind of furthers their operating style or their MO year after year. And I wonder if we will ever get close to those kind of splashes again.
Yeah, to me, going into this offseason, it kind of always felt like if they were going to do a big splash, it was going to be the trade. It was never going to be a big splash through free agency like a Milton Williams. It just didn't feel like that. It felt like they didn't want to compete with the market. They wanted to compete with just like getting a deal done and working on compensation with that other trade partner. And then from there, you just negotiate in a silo with that player. What do you want to stay as a Bill?
What?
Did something happen?
I think the Bills just signed Joey Bosa. Yo, we got the wildest luck.
Hold on, let me see.
No way.
Funny. That's funny considering.
Don't do that.
We're talking about Von Miller.
Don't do this, chat. One guy said it. Hold on. Confirm? What? Oh man, I just want to go watch tape. Stream is over.
Hold on. Where's
what's the irony of us having that conversation?
That's crazy. Like, $12+ million deal.
I was say Matthew. Matthew came in clutch here. Matthew says breaking news: $12.6 million. Joey Bosa. This is like the fun peek behind the curtain for everybody in the chat. Now I gotta change the episode graphic and like
you're gonna have
the
title.
Yeah, Joe just went earlier. And Joe said, "Of course, this happens right after my show."
That's
all
tough.
Caps.
Hey, but at least he got the other guys. Like, I mean, we'll just be giving reaction now. I mean, Josh Palmer and Hoecht are almost old news now, so at least they got covered.
All right, Kendall, talk about some stuff because I'm going to change this episode graphic.
All right, you do that. I'm going to wax poetically about Joey Bosa. No, this is interesting too because I think this officially closes the door on the Von Miller return on the cheap because I know Von Miller. Hold on, real quick.
Thank you for the super chat, Jason, and for being here every week. Yeah, I'm very happy about this. I'm extremely stressed right now because I got to change the title, change the graphic. There's a lot happening right now. I was gonna say, and Pete said you two should do this more often. This is the second time this has happened to us. This is wild.
We got to do this every offseason or every free agent negotiating period.
Week of like that first week.
The negotiating period, like this is the money time.
Yeah, and there's also injury concerns about Bosa, but
for sure.
I gotta, man.
I mean, let me find his spot track just to see like what he was.
Peek behind the curtain for those folks, right? I created this episode at like 8 something because I was waiting to make sure no news would happen, so I can have an updated graphic that I was creating, and I was like, nothing's gonna come through. Well,
here's what I'll say. Yeah, I was getting on this idea of like I know news has broken about Von Miller being open to a return at at a lower cost. He just wanted to see the market and stuff like that. And I think the Bills were definitely in the market for someone who's more strictly a pass rusher only, because I mean, Hoyt's great, but his upside isn't as a pass rusher. His upside is as a run stopper, having versatility, and he can grow as a pass rusher. He's a solid pass rusher, but it's more room for growth than it is like the foundation on which he was signed. He was signed as a run stopping pocket pusher with a lot of effort and strength and active hands. I like him, but this is a really good compliment to him and a good compliment to the edge group that the Bills have. I mean, honestly, at 12 million, like I'm trying to look at this right now.
1 year deal.
Like, it's a very smart thing for the Bills to do, just in of money, just talking value. His average for his last contract was 20 million. His average before that contract was 27 million. So this is below his average. We know he's quote unquote like a broken player who's mending. You know, he's had his injuries in the past, had trouble staying on the field, but we know what he is when he's healthy. He's yet to turn 30. I mean, it's going to happen before the next season starts, but I mean, a 1 year deal for a guy that's 30 years old, upside.
He's
because
30. He's the older Bosa. I always confuse both him and Nick in terms of which one came first.
But hey, I mean, Nick Bosa's what, 5 days ago was the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL.
Oh, that's right.
You know, so this is a really good value play for what he is. The question is, how close can he get to his prime self? Because I mean, at 30 years old, like, he still should have gas in the tank. It's just how much have injuries piled up and impacted him.
And so that's the thing, right? As I am going to update this graphic for all you folks, but I also want to engage in this conversation. I don't know. I'm very much like Ricky Bobby right now. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, there's so much happening right now. My thought with this is, actually, I'm also going to change. Why not? Let's also change the banner for new people coming in. Joey, man, what are the odds for you and I again?
No, that's crazy.
What's the deal?
1 year, 12.6.
1 year.
And see if there's more details.
So here's my thought on it, right? And I watched the Chargers defense. Actually, I watched a decent chunk of Chargers defense this year because they did some fun stuff. And then what's his face? The two rookie corners, Cam Hart and other dude's name who I always mispronounce, number 29. The rookie
I know who you're talking about, but
he had like the best like EPA per target in the league. It was like wild. But Khalil Mack is sweet and Poona Ford is sweet. And I like Deion Henley. And so I was watching Chargers here and there, like, and I've watched them throughout the years a little bit. Whenever Bosa's been on the field, he's been productive and he's a good rusher. Like, the one thing I remember, like, if we're going off of it, the two things that stick in my mind from a negative standpoint for him are the injuries, where it seems every year he's banged up. And then two, I think of him wiling out in a bad way as the Chargers melted down against the Jags. I believe he had just come back from injury again. And so the 1 year deal, as you know, a lot of people are saying in the comments, I'm a fan of the 1 year deal because for me, it's very low risk, potentially high reward. If he stays healthy and produces when he's on the field, he's sweet. Yeah. If he's not, it's a 1 year deal. You really haven't pot committed yourself. And also, my thought would be, so I mentioned earlier, I wanted Dante Fowler, right? The what? Two flubs, almost at the exact same time, 12 minutes apart. The thought process that's been going through my mind this year of what I wanted off the edge was, and the verbiage that I've used is, I wanted a mercenary off the edge. I wanted an assassin. I wanted a proven known commodity, similar to when they signed Leonard Floyd, right? I was in favor of that again. Like, I would, you know, it's cool to have a younger guy with some upside, or even if they drafted somebody early, if they got Donovan Ezaraku from Boston College, who I love, I'm like, oh, that'd be sweet. But still, like, it's not known. I wanted a proven dude who can go out and get you those kills, right? And Fowler can 1,000% do that. Bosa, I think, can also do that. But now with Groot, Epinesa, and Michael Hoecht, you've got 3 very good run defending, edge setting run defenders. And, I know people don't want, bro, Jason nailed me. Jason says Ant wants to look at film so bad right now. He's literally shaking. You have no idea. I'm
in the same boat right now.
And so we've also been getting dinged on our film videos.
Oh,
part of me wants to just pull up film right now and we just watch tape on Joey Bosa.
Freehand it,
But it's been messing things up, and then that screws with the algorithm.
Yeah.
Oh, you have no idea. Jason knows me so well. I'm so into that. But
yeah, I know what I'm doing when we stop.
Right? As soon as we might just stay in the stream, be like, let's watch tape. So Bosa, what's interesting is, again, pairing it with who you have at the top 3. And as much as Epinesa hasn't grown into the player that fans want, right? Like, he was a 2nd-round pick. Technically, he was the first pick that year because that was the Diggs year. I understand the qualms with, he's more of a rotational edge 3. He was a good pass rusher, and now he's more of a good run defender, so on and so forth. I do think he provides value. But now, again, Epinesa, more so Groot. Groot is an elite run defender. But what I like about this move is now you've got Groot, who's an elite run defender. You've got Epinesa, who is also grown into a good run defender. You've got Michael Hoecht, who is a terror off the edge from a physicality and violence standpoint, which we will talk about at some point, or maybe not. And then you've got Joey Bosa, who now can just be, hey, man, like, you've had some injury concerns? Cool. Wait till you get into known passing down and distance and just go hunt. And then now you and I have had this conversation in text, and I believe on the show, Groot as a pass rusher is very much more of a Robin than he is a Batman. He is a legitimate edge 1 as a run defender. He's one of the best run defending defensive linemen in all of football, whether it's metrics, whether it's tape. He is a force multiplier as a run defender, right? But he needs the Batman to go to his Robin as a pass rusher. So what the Bills could do, you could either go and get a true edge 1 as a pass rusher, or you could just get more Robins, which I was also not opposed to. If you want to have 3 edge 2s, I'm down for that. If you want to have a whole bunch of B+ or Bs instead of 1 A- or A+, I'm down for that. Like, I'm okay. But now you've got Bosa, and I like this move from the perspective of he's had some injury concerns. You're not going to have to use him on early downs a ton because you've got Groot, you've got Hoecht, and you've got Epinesa.
Run defending edges.
Yes, really. And Hoecht, again, we're going to get into it. Hoecht is sweet. Like, I legitimately like Michael Hoecht.
I was pleasantly surprised. Today was the first day that I watched tape on him.
Nice. He's got really good tape. Like, I said in the film room last week, I told it to you in text. Hoecht is the guy who shows up on tape when you're watching for someone else. Like, for those who watch the show regularly, you folks should know, I would hope. I love Kobe Turner coming out a couple years ago. I love Cam Kitchens, safety out of Miami, coming out last year. Both those guys are on the Rams, so I would check in with the Rams from time to time. And then Jared Verse was just having this banger of a season, so I was like, I'm going to watch what the Rams are doing. And 97, Michael Hoecht just kept flashing, but he was always flashing in weird ways. Like, he'd flash off the edge in a 5-man surface, like he'd be in a wide 9. Then he'd flash off the edge in a 4-man as like a 5 or a 7. And then he'd like flash in the A gap or from an off ball or in coverage. And I was like, what does this guy play? And so I just kept noticing him and taking notes on him and watching him throughout the year. And he's a legitimate piece, physical, violent. I'm just going to even read some of my, like, just the size and athleticism combo. 6'4", roughly 310 pounds. He can play off the edge. He can rush from an off-ball standpoint. He's good as a spiker.
Is he's actually 310 pounds?
That's what he's listed I don't understand. As on PFF. I don't think so, but I could also buy it. I have to see.
On
that's what he's listed
on Pro Football Reference, he's 267.
Okay, so then PFF is a lie.
Maybe.
I don't know. Those are wild differences, though. But
no, I know.
What he can do off the edge in the A gap, he can rush guards, he can rush centers, like he will go through you, he'll go around you. He's got good hand usage. He's just, I described him as, dirt, sandpaper, and violence. And that's what I love. And you put him on, again, him, Groot, and Epinesa, you have a solid 3-man rotation.
Well, everyone's complimenting each other. Like, I'd say outside
but now Bosa
of
doesn't have to,
Epinesa,
if you have Bosa on the field less, and you just let that, he's, again, not to use the Von Miller term, but it's more of like a closer. in baseball. Like, you just let that dude sit in the cage back there and like,
For
yo,
sure.
it's the 8th. You ready to come out? And the 8th inning is just every third down for the Bills. So now
Exactly.
you get a dude who gets to stay fresh, who's impactful, but also if you're on the field less, odds are you probably ideally have less of a chance to get injured. But
I
then
mean,
how it pairs with the
mathematically.
top 3, really, really, really like it.
Yeah, I love that. I think the whole group makes a lot more sense when you have that like true pass rusher. And that was the fear when you get rid of Von Miller's like, oh, do we need to go draft one? And like you said, just like the unknown commodity of it all, trying to
Yeah.
get a true pass rusher who's only going to play on third downs as a rookie. Like it's kind of slow to develop. Like this is really ideal for the group. Yeah, I was gonna tell you the up to 15.6.
I appreciate
I mean,
everyone in
it's
the
smart.
chat. I am so like, I want to watch tape. I want to talk about it with you. I need to change the graphic. I need to do so many things. This is the second time this has happened to us in 3 years or whatever. Like, wow, yeah, that's absolutely wild.
It's crazy. But yeah, I love
Sorry,
this. It
continue.
makes it makes a lot of sense. It complements the group. It frees you up in the draft. You don't feel like you need to go edge early. I mean, we got 2 in free agency. You don't feel like you
No,
need to go edge
honestly,
unless it's like a Javon Solomon type
well,
pick. But
so,
like that's
and
the
we
thing.
we
You don't
left
need to
him
do it
out
because you
too.
have Javon Solomon.
Exactly. Like, you also have now at this point, edge was obviously a big need. I thought defensive tackle, CB, and edge were the top 3, and it wasn't close. And I only put defensive tackle and CB ahead because I think you need actually a starting defensive tackle. I think Daquan needs to be
Yeah.
more of a 3. And even if you don't, you
still
need at
need
least
another.
you need another. I also wouldn't mind putting someone ahead of Dwayne Carter just because I don't believe in him a ton, but whatever. But you need a defensive tackle, 1, probably 2. You needed an edge. You literally need a starting CB. Like, that's what it is.
Mhm.
But now I think you're good at edge. You've got Groot, you've got Hoyt, you've got Epinesa, you've got Bosa, and then you sit there with Javon Solomon, who flashed really well last year. Now, and also, we've had this conversation offline as well. We talk about the basketball lineup at wide receiver. Now
at
you
the
have the
edge now.
basketball lineup at edge.
Yeah,
You've
100%.
look what Groot can do, look what Epinesa can do, what Bosa can do, what Hoyt can do, and then you've got Solomon, who's this smaller but long arm, big hand, moves based pass rush specialist who's got some bend and athleticism. Cool. Does he develop in year 2? Let's see. Does he not? We have a really good solid top 4, and you go from there. I honestly think edge is good now.
No, I feel the same way.
Solid.
Like the way I see the edge group in terms of the basketball analogies, you have the sides of the spectrum here. You want to get that first?
I was gonna say, yeah, real quick. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, Justin. I love how you know the rhythm of the show, Kendall. You're the best. Thank you for being here, Justin. Thank you for the super chat. And Justin's question, Kendall, you can answer this first. He says, does the Bosa addition mean defensive tackle, corner, wide receiver, first 3 picks? Kendall, what are your thoughts?
I think they like the safety class. I honestly think they like the safety class. Like, this was one of the fastest safety classes we've seen in some years. I mean, 40 isn't everything, but that is statistically true. And then they signed Josh Palmer. Like, I think
who we have to talk about.
We will eventually talk about. So I think they're trying to reduce the priority of wide receiver in the draft, and I think they accomplish that. That's what they do every year in free agency. Their free agent picks are precursors to what they're deprioritizing in the draft. So I think we can see them deprioritize edge and deprioritize wide receiver. Might they take a swing at both of those positions late? Sure. But I think first 3 picks, I think it'll be some sort of permutation of defensive tackle, cornerback, and safety at this point.
So I said it even before. Actually, I said it offline to you. I've said it on social too. My dream pick right now for the Buffalo Bills is Mississippi corner Trey Amos.
Yeah,
the size, the comfortability and press, the combination.
He ran well. He answered the question.
So
he ran well.
My biggest question was because he wasn't getting blown by or having guys run past him. But I had questions about his long speed. But he's also a very smooth strider. So I literally have in my notes, smooth strider or questionable long speed, and then question mark. But he ran in the low 4.4s, so I'm good there.
Yep.
He's got he's just consistently in phase because of the combination of length and footwork that he has. And if I want guys who can constrict and restrict airspace. And that's what he is because of his comfortability and press. Mississippi plays a bunch of NFL coverages.
Mhm.
He's comfortable in match, zone, man, off, press, all of those mixed together in whatever amalgamation and form. Right now, if I'm betting, not betting. I think you need a corner in round 1 because the defensive tackle class is deeper in round
That's a
2
fair
and
point.
3.
Just
But
generally, yeah.
man, you could there's going to be a good corner there at the end of round 1. I don't think it's going to be Jahdae Barron. I think it would be
No,
someone
probably
more
not.
like Amos or Maxwell Hairston that just came up into the chat. And then also throw it out there too. If Malachi Starks falls to 30,
That's what I'm thinking.
not
Like,
opposed to that at
that's
all.
kind of where
Like,
I'm at right now. It's like if like Walter Nolan, Malachi Starks, and
see, Nolan to me, because of the redundancy with Ed,
100%.
I wouldn't. But also,
it would take
then
a free agent signing. It would take here. How about hear me out here?
there's so many things to talk
They
about.
si-
I am overwhelmed.
They signed Roy Lopez.
Bro, don't do
And
that
then
to me.
they
If they did,
hold
I'd be so
on. Let me
happy.
set the table. They
Okay, set it, sorry.
sign Roy Lopez.
Okay.
And then you're at pick 30, and
God.
you have on the board Hairston,
Yeah.
Amos,
Yeah.
Nolan,
Yeah.
Starks.
Yeah. Why would you do this to me? I'm overwhelmed again. This is so enticing. Yeah, you can make a case for any of them, and there's no.
You can make a case for absolutely any of them, and you're not making a wrong. Well, obviously, 4 years from now, there's a wrong decision, but like
they're all terrible. They're all those guys are just super busts.
They all sound very enticing. Like I didn't even think about Harrison so much. Like his size kind of concerns me a little bit, but I was also in on the idea of getting someone who's a little bit different from Benford, and that does intrigue me.
That's fair,
right? Like,
yeah,
they do kind of complement each other in a sense.
And you're talking about Hairston, right? Sorry.
Yeah, Maxwell Hairston.
His speed is so real.
100%.
And even when like he'll get fooled and he'll get beat, he'll get turned inside out, and then he's just got recovery speed, or it's like, no, it doesn't matter. I can run this down. I'm fine. Questionable tackling. His angles are bad, and his tackling is just not great. But again,
feels like an over-aggressive style of player because he trusts his athleticism.
Fair, which is also understandable. But I don't mind that combo. Like, so for right now, for me, I think they're going defensive tackle or corner in round 1. Or I don't know, maybe Matthew Golden falls and they really like Matthew Golden. I wouldn't rule out safety. I think at this point,
I'm not ruling out safety.
No, I think the first pick is going to be between a defensive tackle, a corner, or a safety. We're getting mad super chats, so I got to pull this up as we go through. Yeah, just the Tippy Canoe says my jersey number would have a decibel, maybe 3.14. I'd get a sack and I'd do an eating celebration. I like that. That's fair. Where else? Carl, where are you? Carl, thank you for being here as always, Carl. Oh, and thank you for being here. Just the Tippy Canoe, one of my favorite names. Just the Tippy Canoe gets me every time. Carl, thank you for being here. You have a good name as well. Appreciate the super chat. Carl says Joey Bosa had a lot of injuries in 2024. Oh, this sounds like a team injury report, not just a person. Broken hand, hip injury, glute strain, sciatic nerve pain. Is he now fully healthy? Question mark. Availability, 3 question marks. I was say that's.
I mean, that's the reason we got him for $12 million, and he's incentivized to get to 15.
And this isn't a homer take, and this is a big if. If Joey Bosa is healthy, he's one of the best pass rushing edges in all of football.
Yeah, like, probably top 10. Yeah,
he's in it. But the question is he healthy?
I was just looking at it. He's played out of his 9 seasons. He's played 2 full seasons.
Oh, and they're always
granted. 2021 could have been like we don't need you to play week 18, but still,
that's fair. But within those, let's see. Yeah, like 2022 down year majority, and it's not only like does he get banged up, like he gets like destroyed with an injury. It's not like, oh man, like he sprained his wrist and he's out for 2 weeks. It's like he broke his hand. He can't move his hip.
Creates a muscle imbalance somewhere else, and then he's out for 4
So that's one that always gets me. Like bone stuff is not, I don't want to say bad luck, but like if you broke your hand or you broke like your ankle or something, obviously certain bones breaking are a bigger problem than others. It's the soft muscle stuff that gets me. So if you've got like if it's joint and muscles, those worry me more than anything because those usually can be recurring. Exactly. Like those tend to be reoccurring. They tie to other pieces and do other things. Mm-hmm. Those ones worry me more than like just the bones. But yeah, he has a hit list literally of injuries. We have another super chat from Mr. J Blonde 2012. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the super chat. Ooh, little somewhat off topic here. He says, do the Bills trade Cook for a pick and give more time to Ty Johnson and Davis? $15 million a year is too much for a running back that can't block. What are your thoughts on James Cook?
The James Cook thing is so tough because, I mean, Saquon, that new Saquon contract made it
But there's
tough
also,
for the
too,
Bills.
like, I know what Cook is asking for, whether it's the Bills or someone else. No one's giving James Cook that much money.
Well, until he
Like,
proves that he can be a 3-down back. That's the thing. Like, it's hard to give someone, and I guess Alvin Kamara's like, he's probably the piece his agent should hang on to the most. But like, I don't know. Cook isn't on the field enough, and he doesn't impact the game from every phase enough to get that full
Which
contract.
is also annoying because he has so much receiving value, but
yeah,
then
he does.
Like, that's where third downs come in. But also, if you're a liability in pass pro, then you're not going to be there on third down. So,
it becomes problematic. I almost feel like the Bills are playing the long game, like almost reverse Bengals, where they're like, if we do another year, because we know we can go another year without extending him, and then we just don't give him all the touchdowns that he got, what's he going to have to bargain with or negotiate with?
Which also would bother me a little. Like, I think touchdowns is such a
It's a stupid thing for agents to pitch. It's so
anything.
stupid.
When someone's like, man, this running back's great, he had this many touchdowns. I'm like, I'm not measuring value with that. But to your point, it could be something.
The Bills can control touchdowns more than James Cook can control touchdowns. Like, it comes from a play call. Like, let's call it what it is. So, I mean, it's like, you don't give Raheem Mostert a ton of money because of what he did in 2023, tying Christian McCaffrey for, 21 scrimmage touchdowns. Like, that was a byproduct of the team getting stopped on the one and the next play call. Like, it's just part of it. Like, I don't know. Touchdowns, I agree. It's a stupid thing to negotiate with. But I think the Bills have the power. If that's the negotiating chip that his agent is playing, is like, look where I was on the touchdown leaderboard among running backs. It's like, well, we can wait another year. There's no reason for us to do this right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So my stance on it is I'm fine either way. If you want to tell me, hey, we're going to use Cook as is this year, and then, happy trails. If you're not going to sign something we like, bye. Okay, whatever. The only way I'm trading him is if I get a day 2 pick back, which I think would be a little tough. So, like, I'd have to trade Cook and get at worst like a round 3 pick somewhere.
Oh yeah, you have to. He was a second round pick.
Absolutely. And so my issue with that is one, I would want that. 2, I don't know if they're going to get it. 3, I don't like creating a hole that you then have to fill. And as much as I like Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, James Cook's speed makes a difference. So now it's not necessarily like for like, but if you could tell me, right, if you could guarantee me the Bills could trade James Cook and replace him with Travion Henderson, I would take that.
Sure.
But that, like, it's got to be literally like you're creating a hole that you then have to fill. And I like Ray Davis. I like Ty Johnson. They need someone with James Cook's type of electricity and juice. The Bills' O-line is very good.
Yeah.
Their run game, their run structure, their run layering and play calling and sequencing is also very good. There was a good chunk of runs where James Cook played above the scheme and made things work that were not there. Even just off of the duo runs where he bounces and then he had the physicality to beat a corner or the speed to beat a corner. That goes a long way for a concept that is designed 100%. To make that corner be the unblocked guy. And then how he's improved his vision and gap scheme and his pacing and timing. So it would have to be. He's
developed so well.
Yes, absolutely. So, like, I don't mind trading him, but it creates a hole that you then have to create. But I'm not getting anywhere near paying him what he thinks he wants.
To your point, it sounds like the most comfortable you would be is almost a draft, then trade for a 2026 third rounder.
Yeah, which is
like, that's a tough formula to hit.
Absolutely. Like, and it's almost like it's a moving target of what you're trying to hit. And I don't, not that it's like impossible to hit, but it's just a dangerous game you play a little bit. I just DM'd you a thing that I'm using for myself. So if you see a message on Twitter, don't feel free to ignore it. But yeah, that's I like this comment here from Pete, who says Bosa is healthy enough to sign with a team and unhealthy enough to be available for 1 year, 12.6. Well, this is, again, I keep saying this phrase. You and I talked about what I'm about to say. Paulson Adebo.
Yeah.
We talked about him as corner. We were like, is the broken femur enough to make this contract? It wasn't, because the Giants paid him for
It
real
wasn't.
retirement money. But would the broken femur be enough that this had to be a prove it deal and he would cash in next year? That's where Bosa is. If Bosa can prove that he's healthy, again, he's what, 30 years old? 30?
He'll
right?
be 30 at the start of the season.
Bosa will be 30. If he can stay healthy and produce on a Super Bowl caliber team, then next year maybe he signs more of 2-year 36, 2-year 30, 2 year more. If he can get back to just, there isn't even getting back. He just has to stay healthy. Like, again, he is, I'm about to look up his stats in a minute and stuff now that I finally finished friggin' graphic. Man, I'm scrambling right now. This is wild. And the odds of this happening to you and I again, it's just nuts. But yeah, I think this is spot on from Pete. He's healthy enough to sign with the team and unhealthy enough to be available for that 1 year kind of prove it type of deal.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's really the bottom line with the Joey Bosa thing, but I love it. It's exactly the type of value that they strike year after year. And you said it, like, this is the area of free agency that Brandon Beane is just, he's getting expertise in, because that's where the roster is. There's enough core pieces on the roster that they've had to pay for the last 6 years, and those people are changing. It's a revolving door, but there are enough core players that are on the books where you can't take splashes every year. You might be able to make one splash every 3 or 4 years. So making these signings is exactly how the Bills have to play free agency. And yes, it's like, there's a lot of questions, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't exactly know how to feel, because they know the name Joey Bosa, but they don't know what he's going to be. Yes. And there's a reason he was available. And like Pete said, there's a reason that he was 12.6. So
RJ says, I can't remember. Did the Von Miller news break during Ant and Kendall show? Yeah, we went live on Disguise coverage.
Right before we went live.
It broke at the show. We went live at 7 p.m. on the Wednesday. It broke. The news went live at like 6:49, 6:50. So like 10 or 11 minutes before we went live. Yeah. And that's all. Kendall, let's pull up some stuff on even Joey Bosa, even this past year, while having it hurt, man, 34 pressures, 17 stops. I'm just going to go through and find, man, those years though, 2019 to 2021. So 3 seasons where he managed to stay decently healthy. 72 pressures, 61 pressures, 69 pressures. That 2019. So I'm just going to read it like individually by season. Okay. That 2019 season. 72 pressures, 49 stops. 2020, 61 pressures, 31 stops. 2021, 69 pressures, 31 stops. That's kind of what you're going for. Like, he does play the run because of the juice and the technicality of what he can do off the edge. Like, he's just no more for his pass rush ability. It's just a matter of if he can stay healthy. And the tape is going to be...
if the Bills are trying to be precautionary over it. Like, do they even want him to play the run with who they have to play the run who aren't named Bosa?
Fair. I'm going to answer this real quick from Claude. Claude says, Ant, I disagree with you on Cook. Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, Etienne, Hell, Raheem Sanders, and Jack Hunter could all reasonably take Cook's role. It's got to be the right combination of scheme, skill set, and juice. Hampton, I like, but he's more of a straight line runner in addition to kind of being more of like a thumper. Henderson's a good blocker and has juice, could do it a bit. Judkins is a little more thunder than he is Cook's lightning. Etienne has had injury issues, and the style of runner isn't the same in terms of his pacing as Cook, but the juice is there. Not necessarily like his brother, but it is there. Rocket Sanders from South Carolina, good 40 time, doesn't play like that, is more of a thumper. He helped me win a national championship with South Carolina and NCAA football 25. I want to say that. So it has to be the right skill set. It's not just about like how good the prospect is. For me, it's the fit of the skill set with the scheme. But all these guys are good backs. I wouldn't be opposed as well. Oh, and then also a chosen one. NB puts in Johnson, the kid from Iowa kid as well. Yeah,
but
Caleb
that's
Johnson
like
is
thumper
fun,
style.
Yeah, he's more thumper. He's got some decent speed, but he's more
for sure.
I tell you what I would do with Caleb Johnson. I put Caleb Johnson in and I just run duo all day. And that's all I do.
But that's the thing. Yeah, it's just replacing that style of players is tough. He is a unique player, but the ideal is getting someone like Cook who can stay on the field for all 3 downs. But then it's like, why did we just re-sign Ty Johnson?
Yes.
You know?
And Ty Johnson has crazy productive numbers like in those. He's a good pass protector. And so I think that's also too kind of where like the Ray Davis timeline comes in because of Charles says Damian Martinez. Yeah, I'm a Miami guy. If you want a pure hammer, Damian Martinez is it. And he ran better than I thought, but yeah, pure hammer with Martinez. That's where the Ray Davis conversation comes in though, with bit of a better pass protector, built better for pass protection, just had to get better with his technique and scanning and being able to find that out. I think he could be more of a true 3-down back because he's a good receiver. He's a good runner. He just doesn't afford you the juice. It's crazy. You know, it's not crazy, but this is how good of a year that James Cook had, that in the middle of the Joey Bosa signing, we're talking about James Cook right now. And I don't say that negatively, but like it's
part of the news.
I mean, James Cook is James Cook the second best player on the Bills offense, including everyone? Like, is he better? Is he a better running back than Deion Dawkins is a left tackle?
I was going to say it's between the two. Here's the problem. In a silo, yeah, he's probably a better player, but he's also probably less important because of the position he plays.
That's fair.
That's just the reality, or I guess it's not even the reality. It's the business of football. Like, I hate to say it, but it actually has nothing to do with his talent. It's like, because all things are equal, if I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's too close to call, I'm going to pick the left tackle. Like, it's just what I'm going to do. I mean, there's a reason the Bills take a running back once every 2 years. So if they have this problem, there's a built-in cost-controlled backup plan called Ray Davis, called Zach Moss, like they do this all the time. I know no one cares for Zach Moss, but the point is like they take the second running back before the first rookie deal is up because it's a built-in contingency for if something like this happens, you don't have to panic. You can stay and hold your cards tight and be like, well, sorry, James, we have Ray Davis waiting in the wings. We have Ty Johnson on cost control. We have options. The draft happens every year and we could replace you with one of these 30 guys. So it's harder to replace a left tackle. It's just a lot harder to replace a left tackle.
That is fair. Yeah. Oh, but again, the fact of him being in that conversation, is a boon for Cook.
It's neck and neck.
Yes, and especially in a year where you traded Stephon Diggs, who was your other blue chip offensive guy, and it was like, okay,
and he stepped up.
Hey, bingo. He's like he raised his game and took it to another level. And again, the physicality, the contact balance, the fall forward, in addition to the speed and the juice, man, he stepped up big in a year where you lost Stephon Diggs and your everybody eats philosophy on offense was starting to kind of, show some wear a little bit after Baltimore and Houston. And then you got Amari Cooper, but he wasn't the same Amari Cooper that you thought. Cook was that guy who was really kind of the home run hitter plus the stabilizing force on that Bills offense that made Allen and the offense's life a lot easier. Again, offensive line, Aaron Cromer, yada, yada, all that kind of stuff, right? But, Cook had a tremendous year. Man, I love the idea of like wanting more. I love this comment from Paisan. He says, if we can still pull off a deal for Hendrickson, man, there's one, I don't think that's happening financially, but two, I really don't. Again, the Bosa health issue is a legitimate thing. And I want to kind of pull up if there's a thing that I know there was a site. Yeah. K. Morey said, we haven't even talked about Hoyt or Palmer yet. We'll get there. But yeah, the injury piece and injury concern is very real for Joey Bosa. But if he's healthy, that's a significant piece for this defense. And in a rotation with Groot, Epinesa, and Hoyt, and then Javon Solomon, I do think you're kind of fine at edge. Granted, again, Bosa's health is a significant thing. If he all of a sudden goes down, Javon Solomon's the fourth.
I still think you're fine. Like, even with the health thing, like you have 5 with Solomon, like you have 5 and a Pro Bowler who has injury concerns. Like, he's going to be on a pitch count until he proves that he doesn't have to be.
That's fair. And again, he's not going to need to. He was a 3-down player with the Chargers, and rightfully so. Him and Matt both, like they were sweet. But now you can just.
He doesn't have to be.
Yes, he's more of a 3-down player right now than Von Miller was. So I don't think people
Mhm.
need to get worried of like, is he only going to see 20 snaps? Is he only going to see 25? But if the game is in hand, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
But I do think you'll get more of a significant rotation from him than Von Miller. But I really just like the idea of being like, man, just drink some water and chill. Oh, it's 2nd and long and 3rd and long. All right, man, go out there. Like,
Yeah.
I like the idea of having Groot and Hoyt and Epinesa do the dirty work.
Yeah. I don't need him playing first down. I don't.
No. Oh, man. And then on 3rd down, bro, give me Groot,
With
Ed
Hoyt on the
Oliver.
field,
Give me Groot, Ed
dude,
Oliver,
you can do
Hoyt,
some
Bosa on 4th
crazy
down,
versatile things on 3rd down. Crazy things.
man.
Everyone's
Packages
concerned
you could
about
get
the
into.
3rd and long issues from last year. I mean, between Hoyt and Bosa, you've made a lot of different schematic possibilities.
Oh, man. Yeah. I like what Charles called it. He said the monster truck package. I like that a lot. Yeah, Spin says Bosa's deal is $12.6 million deal up to $15.6. Yeah, that's what I have in the banner here. Kudos to the chat and obviously Kendall to you. Like we're kind of pivoting as we go through here. But yeah, it's a what else? Do you have any stats or anything you want to read off of Bosa?
I
Anything you've been looking up?
just found one thing on Bosa that's, I mean, it's not eye popping or anything, but he's within the top 32 of edge rushers in pass rush win rate for a down season. So he's still, from a pass rush win rate perspective, in starter territory. I mean, there's not much to glean from his 2024 season, to be fair. I mean, it's tough when you don't play a lot and when, you have declined in your career, but like you can tell he still has it. Like pass rush win rate is a good indicator of if you still have what it takes. 13.5% is still pretty solid. Where did that rank exactly? It was 28th. So top 32, still starter territory.
When was his
I can't believe he made the Pro Bowl this year. Actually, that's probably a stand-in Pro Bowl.
I was gonna say so many guys deny it that like I'm just kind of like, what's what was his last fully healthy season? 2021?
I would call it 2021, even though it wasn't 17 games. Like the one he sat out was probably a meaningless game.
So let's go. Yeah, if we're looking at it from the last 3 years for everybody, 5 games played in 2022, 9 games played in 2023, 14 games played last year. But again, a bunch of that season in 2024 was filled with, he was playing through different injuries, which again, if you are more of a rotational guy, you can manage those injuries a little more, which is another boon and kind of feather in the cap. But again, the bonus that you are getting here, I really don't think this. I'm happy about this move. I'm assuming
I love
you are
it
as well. Yeah,
yeah.
I am very happy with this. I recognize the downside of he's an injury prone guy. What happens if he gets hurt again? So on and so forth.
If he gets hurt again, it only hurts the 2025 cap. Like there's very, very little risk.
Yeah. That's my thing. Like, I think it's low risk. I don't know if he's staying long term. Like, I really do think if he has the year that he's capable of having,
he'll probably go chase.
He'll probably cash in somewhere else. But again, that's fine. Which again, it doesn't help us necessarily long term. But I'll take it for this year if they can just be the land of mercenaries year in and year out. Keep bringing guys on these deals. Again, he is a high end, no pun intended, edge rusher when healthy. You get him in a rotation. You let Hoyt and Rousseau and Epinesa fulfill the run duties, which again, Bosa can also do, but you just want to kind of let him be that assassin, let him be that hunter, let him be the mercenary off the edge, let Groot and AJ and Hoyt do a lot of the dirty work, and then you just have Bosa hunt on 3rd down. And then, man, what do you do with, if you're an offensive line, like, are you confident blocking Bosa one-on-one? Like,
that's the thing. I mean, that's the big thing with the Bills defense is, you said the Batman and Robin stuff. If we can get Groot in more one-on-ones, if we can get Ed Oliver in more one-on-ones, like this is something that helps that's really, really the key is we need to get those two guys in one-on-ones. And if we're not, that means Bosa's probably getting one-on-one. So it just creates a good math problem for the Bills defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like this a lot. Oh, we got another super chat. Thank you very much. Again, Carl. Carl says, I like it so far. We don't want to draft out of necessity. We need a defensive tackle, a wide receiver, and a safety, as edge is now okay. Who else do you see us getting in free agency to fill the holes? I'm going to start with 2. Kendall mentioned one earlier. I want Roy Lopez so bad. That's the one tech that, and also we got to put this in perspective too, right? For the one tech that a lot of fans like or want. The Bills are not going to be that team that has a true like plugger as the one tech. They are not. If Ted Washington and Pat Williams played today, they're not going to, like, the Bills aren't the team that's going to take them. Just like they weren't going to take Devondre Sweat last year. You need to have some semblance of upfield juice or penetration ability or pass rush ability in some form or fashion. Honestly, they like all their interior guys to skew more towards the pass rush than they do run defense. But I see someone in the chat. No, Groot is Greg Rousseau's nickname. I didn't make that up. That's a literal nickname for him. That's been a nickname for him from his rookie year. Someone was like, did I give him a nickname? No,
that's crazy.
That's been his nickname for a very long time. Like, you'd have to get somebody like, okay, Kenneth Grant gives you like some athleticism and juice inside, but is also a huge monster of a man and kind of like a freak athlete to a degree. Lopez for me is more of that mold of a plugger. He's like 70-30 terms of skewed for the run, but he's also got some pass rush pop, push pull. He's got good upfield juice. I would take him in a heartbeat right now. And then he's your one tech, and you can rotate him a little bit. You can play him. Again, I also like him because of his front versatility. If you want to go more 5 down fronts with Michael Hoecht, like you potentially could, and like I think might be coming, or just more front versatility in general, you can have Lopez play over the center. You can have him play as a one tech. You can have him play as a shade. You can do a variety of things with him. I want defensive tackle. I want it to be Roy Lopez. So that's my top free agent to fill that need at defensive tackle. Corner, I wanted a Debo and I wanted Asante Samuel. I didn't think either of them would be realistic or true kind of predictive targets, but that's what my heart wanted. I think they're more in line of, and Eric and I talked about in the film room, and I said it on Twitter, I think someone along the tier of like a Benjamin St. Juste. Like, I think he's literally the perfect example. Somebody who's like a high floor guy that could start or could compete with a corner that you draft on day 2. And I think it's kind of somewhere in that range in terms of, I think they look for a corner with a high floor to pair with a rookie corner and see whoever wins the CB2 job. And then I think they have to add some bodies on the interior. Like, they just don't have anyone right now. So they need bodies on the interior. So I expect moves at both of those. And those are my kind of guys or thoughts for both. What about you, Kendall? You got any thoughts on any potential more free agents to go forward before again, we will talk Josh Palmer and Michael Hoecht as we go forward from there.
I really want them to get a cornerback, and I'm just looking at the list and I'm like very afraid, but also wouldn't be terribly upset if they signed Dane Jackson.
I feel like he's so polarizing.
I know, and that's why I hate that I had to even say it, but like, it doesn't preclude you from drafting a cornerback early, but it also kind of helps you shore up that spot. It allows you to do 2 things. I'm not advocating for signing Dane Jackson to be the starting CB2, but you could do a lot worse. And I'm sure you could do it at a value. So I don't know. It's something that I'm looking at. I don't love it, but I don't love a lot of these names.
The corner market was not ideal this year. It was very much like the top tier guys were legit top tier. Carlton Davis, DJ Reed, you got Shavarius Ward out there. And then like the second tier was like, okay, Asante Samuel, Paulson Adebo, guys like that. And then after that first and second tier, it was just a drop off. Even with like Slay being added and Bradbury being added, it very much
still doesn't move the needle. Yeah.
No, the difference between the third tier and the second tier was a chasm. Like, it was massive. So yeah, I don't love this free agent corner class.
I don't think the Bills take a shot at like Caleb Farley or CJ Henderson. Like, I know they like the whole like reclamation project type of idea, but I don't really see them doing that at corner specifically.
Especially because you need a CB2.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you need something consistent, reliable, dependable, which is why I'm like,
wait, and I also wouldn't rule out maybe Rasul Douglas comes back.
That's something. It feels like it's gonna be something boring at cornerback that people aren't gonna like, but it's also just gonna mean that they're also drafting one.
That's in my thought. Like, with what they've done with what the market looked like, my thought was already like sign more of a lower tier, high floor guy that can compete, but you're pairing that with a corner in round 1 or on day 2.
And I think that goes for all of these positions of need, right? Like including wide receiver. If you want to view Josh Palmer that way, I don't necessarily view him that way, but in terms of defensive tackle, safety, and corner, I think those 3 positions are exactly what you're saying. High floor, pair him with a high upside draft pick.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Let's talk about some of those new additions. Do you want to talk about, what do you want? You want to start with Palmer or you want to start with Hoecht?
Might as well. I already kind of tipped it.
Sure. Aaron said in the comment, yeah, I mentioned this earlier as well. Aaron, Aaron says Trey Amos at 30. I would sign up for this absolutely right now. I have no qualms about it. I would gladly take Trey Amos at 30. Who we talked about. Oh yeah, I just like his game so much.
Gotta put him on the queue now.
He's a really good watch. I've watched
on the queue.
I watched 7 games. I did my evaluation and then went back and watched more because I just liked him. I just wanted to watch more. I just liked him. Like I'm watching him play against Furman. Like that's how much I just want to watch more.
Can he dominate against Furman?
That's exactly. He had a really nice.
If he can't, it's off the board.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I was like, he did well against LSU, but I need to see Furman. That's funny. You want to start with Palmer or you want to start with Hoecht? I feel like you're going to want to start with Palmer.
Yeah. Let's start with Palmer.
Who we just got to at the 1 hour 6 minute mark. Well, we kind of talked about them both a little bit before the news broke. Yeah.
Hey, sneaky thing with Josh Palmer, he might have recruited Joey Bosa. The Bills have made 3 signings. All of them have come from Los Angeles.
People were saying that in the chat. That's a very good. And 2 of them are Canadian. Hoecht is Canadian and Palmer.
I thought he was from Ohio.
No, I think Hoecht is from. I think he's from Toronto.
Palmer's from Toronto. I don't know where.
Maybe
I thought Hoecht was from Ohio. I could be wrong on that though.
Yeah, he's from Oakville. He's from. Oh, it says Oakwood. He was born Oakville, Ontario. He went to high school in Ohio, but he was born in Canada.
That's probably where I got Ohio.
Yeah.
Anywho, so Josh Palmer, I think a lot of people were really, both of us did this too. I think a lot of people were upset on the sticker price. And I actually don't know if it's been updated yet. I'll look that up as I'm talking. But I think a big thing with that's a good comment.
Yeah, he said Paisan says, which means Asante Samuel Jr. is coming here next
on the LA train.
Right. I like that.
I think the big thing with the sticker price that we saw, the 3-year $36 million for Josh Palmer, that's $12 million per year. It's shocking. It's a lot. It's exactly what we let Gabe Davis walk for pretty much. But I think when you start and look at this, you're like, okay, he's a 25-year-old kid. He'll be turning 26 in week 2, week 3.
Mm-hmm.
He's only guaranteed $18 million, which makes it sound like the guarantees really only work through the first 2 years. And this contract is probably going to look more like a 2-year deal with a final year as the team option. And if that's the case, I don't really care so much about the sticker price. I actually think it's a pretty fair value, especially when you reverse engineer it and look at it well, could we have paid Gabe Davis the same thing? But then you look at the tape of Josh Palmer and the age, it's you're getting a guy for the same age.
Yes.
But he's not as limited athletically. His traits and where he can still grow, there's still a lot of upside to this kid. And I remember scouting him out of Tennessee, and he was someone that I found really late in the process. And I watched a couple of games on him, and I was like, I don't have a lot to say on him because he's just super well-rounded. And then I watched his tape and I was just he's the same guy, but he's just kind of gotten a little bit better in all of these areas that he was super.
He's a very well-rounded
everywhere.
Everything. He's a 6.5 to a 7 and everything.
Everything. And in scouting terms, if you're above a 6, your money, you're doing good. You're doing good stuff. So I really view him as at least 6s across the board on just about everything. He's got prototypical size. In my opinion, he ran a 4.5. Now, he did all of his stuff at Pro Days. This was 2021 when there was no combine. Yeah, I know. Everyone needs to take that with a grain of salt. It was
aside
2021
from
draft
the
class.
Physical, height, weight,
Height,
measurements.
weight,
Yeah, I'm always
right.
like,
Like he's 6'1", 210, which we know. We know
yeah.
he's
But I
6'1",
think I
210.
always think of like he ran his 40 on like a downhill track. They like skewed the field. They did
The
something
wind,
like
they made sure he
yeah,
ran with the wind,
just
not
like
against the
giant
wind.
fans like blowing
Exactly.
behind
So
him.
it's like, take it with a grain of salt. But I do think he ran the 4.51 at his pro day, and then you watch it on tape, and he really does get by people. Now, I'm not saying he's a deep threat, and he doesn't like satisfy this idea that we both had going into offseason, get the guy that's going to take the top off the defense. He doesn't do that. That's not the point.
Mhm.
But he has the ability to do it, which I
Mhm.
think checks a box for this Joe Brady offense. I don't think they necessarily want the basketball lineup. I think that's what we want. I think
Yeah.
what they want,
I want it.
I think what they want is for everyone to have like ancillary traits that can satisfy the basketball lineup, but for the most part these players live in the middle of the spectrum. They want as many guys as possible to live in the middle of this wide receiver spectrum in terms of skills and traits. And then where you specialize, there's just like a thing here or there, like, you know, Keon Coleman, body control, jump ball stuff, like that's his little special ability. But for the most part, he lives closer to the middle than you would think. Like all of these guys, I think, live closer to the middle than you would think. And that's how I think they want to build the room. And this is just another guy like that. Yeah, he can separate at all levels. I don't think he's quote unquote different deep speed, but he has it. And it's not like, and I keep doing the Gabe Davis
No.
thing.
Charles is saying separation and deep speed.
Oh, I got
things.
you.
Yeah, and
I
he's
read
saying
that.
Palmer can separate. Yeah.
Any
Oh,
commas or
you read it
something.
like, oh, he's different.
Yeah. That's exactly how you got me.
It's that LA culture, man. I get it. It's
I
that major city culture.
I appreciate the cleanup. That
Yeah,
was good though.
you got it.
I keep comparing him to Gabe Davis, but in terms of winning deep, Gabe did it in a lot of physicality and build up speed.
Mm.
Palmer has good short area quickness. Like he can get off the line of scrimmage with a good release, and he can get to top speed relatively quickly. It's
We were
not
talking
like
about this last night at like 11:30 at night.
yeah, it's not like a astounding 10-yard split or
Yeah.
anything, but it's good and he can get by you. But honestly, it's because of what he does at the line of scrimmage. Like everything he does starts with his release package, and then from there, it's just kind of being able to beat you in any way. Like that's my favorite thing about him is just alignment versatility, route versatility. Like he can win at all three levels. He's only 25, so he can still grow in terms of how he's winning at all three levels. So I've probably talked too long on this, but
Nope.
I like him a lot just because of how well-rounded he is and how much he's going to fit perfectly into this whole mantra of everybody eats. Like that's the point. He can do anything that you need him to do. He might not be the blocker that Gabe Davis or Mac Hollins was, but he can do it. He's a very willing blocker. You see him scrapping down the field for guys. Like there were a couple of Lad McConkey touchdowns that he
Good
single-handedly helped. Like he's a very, and the Bills coaching staff loves guys that are blocking downfield when it's like not even their business. Like they talk about Dalton Kincaid doing it all the time. They talk about Khalil Shakir doing it all the time.
Because he can't block anywhere around the line of scrimmage.
But they always acknowledge it. They always acknowledge it. Like even Josh Allen acknowledges it. Like it's always the top thing that they talk about. So I
because
think
it indicates like effort and care and want to. It's the stuff that like you don't have to do that. You kind of do, but you kind of don't. And so when you do it with consistency, it's like, oh, like it's like the person who shows up like 10 minutes early for their shift every day just to make sure they're on time for their shift. Like you don't have to do that. You can show up right when your shift starts and punch in, but like, yeah, it shows that little care.
So I really like him for what he can be in the future, but also what he is right now. Like I think at the floor, he's giving us what Curtis Samuel gave us last year, which was spurts of good stuff, right? Like I think everyone was probably disappointed with what Curtis Samuel gave us. But
I still think, and this is just from me being live at camp a bunch. I really do think if he doesn't get hurt at the end of camp or preseason or whatever, I think he plays a much more significant role. He was the move, like the leverage creator and main target throughout the majority of camp. And I was there for like several days, like early, late, like he was, and Brady had him brought in like
Right.
purposefully. And
Right.
his best
With
years
their
came under
history
Brady.
too.
Like, I
Yeah.
really do think he would have had a more significant role. Maybe we're still underestimating Curtis Samuel's role in all this just based off he was last year. Like, and again, I don't think that injury ever went away because he tried to play with
No.
it a little bit through the foot. So like
No.
maybe, you know, I don't things are different a little bit for him. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't want to get you off.
No, you're good. But I truthfully believe like that's his floor is just like an output as a role player. And then on top of all of this, it's funny. On top of all of this, he played in a system last year that kept the ball on the ground.
Oh yeah, fair point.
Like he has been a role player and he has been like silently gracious through his 4 years in Los Angeles. He's
Got to
not
learn
been
from a really good route runner in Keenan Allen.
and Mike Williams, like
Oh, yeah, Mike
getting
Williams.
pieces from both of them, like not so much on the route running, but like just
Yeah.
generally speaking, like
But body control, body positioning,
he's
like
gotten stuff from both of those guys, and they both have had their share of injuries, and he steps up and he produced every single time when he was asked to. He stepped up and produced, and then in this final year with Los Angeles, like they really took the air out of the ball, and he still did all the dirty work that they asked him to do. And then when his number was called, like he was just a really solid, dependable guy, which is like Bills through and through. Just get a bunch of B plus guys. Like this is another one of those guys, but the upside is he's 25 turning 26 and he could develop a whole lot within the next 2 to 3 years. So I'm all for it. I think there's value here in a wide receiver market that's really hard to find value. Like it's such a booming market. Like it's really hard to find value, but I think 12 million a year for a 25-year-old is pretty solid.
yeah, I think the way it kind of shook out, I initially was like, oh, that like I thought he would go for like 5 to like 7.5 million
I was
per
thinking
year.
7.
Right? Like again, just kind of low to high. Like my thought was, yeah, okay, like 6.5, 7 mil a year, something like that. Like I thought he would
De'Ami Brown happens, and it's like
so the first one was Tutu. Like Tutu went for 1 year 10, and I was like, oh, so in the film room, Eric and I, all three guys, Tutu, De'Ami, and Palmer, were all on that episode last week or 2 weeks ago, I think. And so I had done a contract projections for them in addition to the scouting, and I saw what Tutu went for, and I immediately was like, oh wow, good for him. And then I went, oh no, like this market.
Changes
and then I saw what De'Ami got. And so the first thing for me for Palmer with the contract, which again, you and I talked about yesterday, and like I didn't love it. I still don't like necessarily love it, but I did. If it functions more as a 2, it is what it is. But that's the market. Like,
that's free agency.
Yes,
every year.
Bang. That's free agency. That's the market. It is what it is. It happened a couple years ago with Christian Kirk and the Zay Jones contract, ironically, both for the Jags. But like certain positions get below. What even this year with what certain guys are getting on the market for at offensive line spots.
Just quickly, like the Patriots are having a fantastic offseason, but they are also objectively overspending on every single guy. Like both can be true.
Yes, that's fair. And I just think with Palmer, you needed his skill set in the room. I think you didn't say it tonight. I thought you were gonna, but you had a great line to me yesterday when we were texting about it. And, you said like, he's a piece to the puzzle.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that's what he is. Yeah. Well, you did say, you said that, I don't even know what puzzles are. I never even heard that word. You said he's a piece of the puzzle. Like he's made, Roy Lopez went to the Lions.
That fits. That makes a lot of sense.
That's a great call. Good for them. I want to throw myself through the window. That's disappointing. Thank you, Luke, for that in the chat. Yeah, he's a piece to the puzzle. I don't think he's necessarily a needle mover or a pendulum swinger, but he's a piece to the puzzle. What I have for everything, my biggest things for him, he gives the Bills size and frame, which you alluded to, 70th percentile for weight, not in a good way, not like, oh God, he's like overweight. 70th percentile for weight, 79th percentile for arm length, 58th percentile for height. And then the route running ability, mainly the ability to separate underneath and in the intermediate via pacing and deception in his stems. Good release package. You hit on a lot of the technical points. I spoke on him in the film room last week, so I'm not going to go too hard with it again. But just you have somebody who is comfortable going up against press, who's comfortable going up against off man or press man, who knows how to pace and change a little bit with his Lopez went for 1 year, 4.65. Oh, I would have given him that in an instant.
I would have given him 5.5.
Oh. Sorry. Thank you for that, Luke. Appreciate you. Yeah,
I hate you, but appreciate you.
I'm mad at the world right now, but thank you so much. He can win at the line. He can win in the stem. He can win on the break. He can win with a little bit of physicality. He can win with footwork. He can beat you with some sharp. He's not a sudden player, but he does have sharpness and precision to his game as a route runner.
There are so many moments, though, where I say that, and then, like, he pulls a pivot route or he pulls a comeback route, and I'm like, where'd you pull that from? Like, I haven't seen this on any route.
But he does. But for me, I sharpness and suddenness are two different things. Even when, for me at least, when he runs those routes, I see the sharpness and the precision. When I think of suddenness, I think of like how Garrett Wilson runs a route. Like how Garrett Wilson runs.
Okay, no, I understand how you're using it now.
That's kind of, so he doesn't have that.
That's fair. Yeah,
but the precision is there. The sharpness, yes, the sharpness is there. And again, that I don't expect a dude who's 6'1", 210 to be a sudden guy.
Crazy.
I expect it, but the fact that he has that level of sharpness, precision
at his
again,
size,
I don't know if it's the Keenan Allen factor and, working with that guy day after day after day. And Keenan Allen, for years, one of the best route runners, one of the best release packages in the NFL. And I think you see, again, not saying that Josh Palmer is Keenan Allen, but you got somebody who is good working in tight splits, working out wide. He's comfortable as the number one outside. You can run a 3-by-1 and he can be the solo receiver on the backside, whatever you want to do. Again, comfortable against press, comfortable against off, man and zone, knows how to work into some blind spots, just a good amount of technicality and just a good overall player. I wish he had a little more vertical speed to him, a little more long speed. Again, he's not slow. Like you said, he's got more. I think he's a good athlete and he's more explosive, like you said, in the short areas. You see some explosion and I'm thinking of the verbiage that I texted you last night. You see some explosion in like the 1 to 10, but then when he opens it up,
he doesn't have that next
really
gear. Yeah, like he hits his top end and like he just maintains it, which is fine, especially for his size.
Yeah. And he's got some good contested catch ability. There's a couple nice reps of that for him. But just somebody who can
a sick one-hander on the top sideline that got barely tapped away.
What game was that? I watched that last night. I thought Baltimore was
my playlist was scrolling through so
where
many
it's to the top of the screen and he reaches out with the left hand and brings it in, but then the corner smacks it right out. It was almost so close. Nasty. I just think he's a guy who helps you out in a lot of ways, and I still think they need more of a vertical speed element, deep threat, which maybe Curtis Samuel can be that to a degree, but I will take another guy who can win in the intermediate and the underneath and can do it with route running and precision, deception, stem work, break work, that kind of stuff. And then has the size to go with it. Again, this is a piece to the puzzle. I still, again, in an ideal world, I would have rather paid him like $7 million a year. But
same.
Unfortunately, you just kind of have to go with what the market is. I don't think he's somebody that, wow, like the Bills got Josh Palmer. Oh my God. No. But I don't think he's this cast off. I think a lot of people were kind of downplaying the signing as like, he's a jag. Like he's just a guy. He's whatever. But I think his skill set
above
really,
that.
Yes,
he's a little above that for sure.
And I think his skill set fits what they needed. They needed that. And if you look at Samuel, Coleman, Shakir, even for how good Shakir is, right? Like you need somebody who's got that precision route running game to go with what Shakir offers
and
in that
can
regard.
Play on the outside.
Yes, and can play on the outside. Like, and Mac Hollins wasn't giving you that. And I love Mac Hollins. Like I loved his blocking. I am concerned a little bit of what does Duo look like this year? Yeah, without Hollins as that blocker. He was so savvy picking up blocks and making plays for Shakir on those RPO bubbles. In those box counts, like, oh, Allen sees what's in the box here. Okay, cool, I'm spitting it out.
Maybe the plan is to make Dalton Kincaid replace Mac Hollins.
Yeah, but the problem is Hollins is such a better blocker than Kincaid.
I agree, but maybe that's
I'm hoping
the plan.
that Keon
maybe they
can
force him into that role. Yeah, that could also work too. 100%, that could also work.
I'm hoping it's more Keon and he's ready to kind of take that next step from a snap share perspective. But yeah, I'm a fan as you are, building the basketball lineup. I like the size. I like the route running capability. And again, what he can do in his releases, his stems, and on the break, being able to win at all three spots in the low, in the underneath and in the intermediate. I'll take it. I'll take it.
pleasantly surprised because I went into this kind of knowing just how well-rounded he was, but I wasn't expecting to see much juice at all. And I was really pleasantly surprised to see how much he could get even or past his guy on vertical routes or even on deep overs.
He is
Like,
deceptively, and some of it is like coverage guys kind of just blowing coverage to a degree, but he is
yeah,
deceptively
sure.
fast to like if you look away for a quick click,
He can get
he's
by you.
past you. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
for
think that's a
sure.
testament to him like having more speed than you think.
Like, there were plenty of reps. Oh my god, this really bothered me. But Herbert really, really zoned in on Lad McConkey last year.
Oh, there
Like
was some of my favorite reps for Palmer on tape are him not getting targeted at all. Like
100%.
he's just
Same. I
breaking it.
think all of my favorites from him were
His
not
he
targets.
had one against Arizona, and I know you watched this last night against Press. It was, I think, maybe the second play or the third play in that playlist where he's, if you're watching the screen, it's a 2x2. He's the number one to the top of the screen, and it's just like a deep comeback. But the snap, he runs off the
Yeah.
corner, and then it's
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, bang, and he turns out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, get him the ball. And I think
I did that
Herbert
at least
throws it to
15
somebody,
times last
bro.
last night. Like, there were so many times where it's like, this guy's creating so much
Even that one
separation, and you're
against
only looking
Tennessee,
at Lad McConkey.
the one against Brownlee, against Tennessee, right? He
Yeah.
doesn't get the ball on that target either. The one that you texted
Mhm.
me about at like 48 seconds in the first quarter,
The
week 10.
the short pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Get him the ball." But again, I understand, like, Lad is
Yeah, he was
sick.
getting pressured. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fine. It was fine.
Their
But
O-line is what it is. But yeah, some of his best
but
reps are him not getting a target.
there were some other ones where it's like, okay, he's playing against cover 2 and the safety is not getting enough width.
Yes.
And there is a clear hole shot on just a vertical, like it's not even a corner route or anything, but there's a clear hole shot as he beats the corner and Herbert's just not even looking at him. And we know like that is Josh Allen's bread and butter. He loves hitting that vertical route as they clear the corner and the safety isn't getting enough width. That's like a free 15 yards for Josh Allen. He loves that. Josh Palmer was open a lot on those this past year. So I'm not saying he's, deep threat. He's going to get us those 60, 70-yard touchdowns or anything, but he can win deep more than you would think. He can
That's
win
fair.
past the 15-yard mark. So I was pleasantly surprised by that and being able to win on deep overs. I just didn't think that was going to be in his game, but he's developed well. He's honestly developed well, and I think he can continue to develop in Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. I already know that Roy Lopez went to Detroit. I don't need you to rub it in. No, I appreciate you, Joe. Thank you. I'm sincerely heartbroken. I really wanted
No,
Roy
that
Lopez.
sucks. That sucks because I
but
even
man,
set the
yo,
table.
You know what's nasty? Roy Lopez playing next to Alim McNeil is going to be sick in
Yeah.
Detroit. And then Hutch coming off the edge. Ooh, I really like that for Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good on inbreakers. He'll run that dig or that basic, like Charles mentioned there. You can run that over that post. You mentioned it last night. We were talking on the text. Yeah, I think he's a piece of the puzzle. I still think he's fit for more of like a wide receiver 3, maybe could creep into wide receiver 2 territory if he starts
probably.
to ascend a little bit.
In terms of pecking order in the wide receiving room?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
I just think in general, if you're building out a wide receiver room, a good wide receiver room has Josh Palmer probably as wide receiver 3. But he can step into.
It's just such a unique conversation because of how the Bills have built their wide receiver
exactly.
room.
It's a nuanced conversation with the Bills because because of how the run factors in. Technically from a snap share perspective, Matt Collins was like wide receiver 1 or 2 last year, and then technically even this year coming up, Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 1.
But if I'm talking like target pecking order, like I
Shakir.
truthfully see Shakir as 1 for wide receivers. And then I really see a path for Palmer to be 2 for wide receivers. Sorry, wide receivers.
Purely wide receivers. Got you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy. If
I see a path for him to be like clear cut 2 and Samuel's 3, or like Samuel and Coleman are like sharing 3.
In an ideal world, Coleman develops and he's pushing for 2
for sure
or 3. I don't think Samuel is ever going to be like a target guy to be like a true 2. I think he'd be more of like you want him to be like 3 catches, 75 yards.
Yeah.
Like that's like what I think Curtis Samuel is built more to be. In an ideal world, it's Coleman. But to your point, I don't think that's crazy that Palmer could like get to that spot.
He just feels so much more reliable to the point where like he just shares such a similar. To me, he really screams Khalil Shakir with size. Like in terms of how he's so well rounded, in that regard, not like he's the same player, but in the sense that he's very dependable and you can rely on him to do all the little things the right way. He just feels like a guy that's going to develop chemistry with Josh quickly, and he's going to command targets.
That's fair.
I don't know. That's just me.
That's fair. No, I think he has some upside for that, and the fit in the system, how Allen plays, how the offense layers, what Brady likes. I don't think it's crazy again, for me, I do think in a good wide receiver room, I think he's more of a 3.
You're absolutely right.
Who can fit, kind of like what he was with the Chargers. Oh, you got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, and Palmer's your 3. Okay. Oh, one of them went down for 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, Palmer can fit in a bit and do some things. But yeah, the Bills conversation is interesting considering how
it makes it weird
how they open. But I'll take a guy who knows how to get open in the underneath and the intermediate. May have cost a little more, but that's more the market than anything. You needed this skill set in the room. And especially with what you need on defense. Like, I don't love having to take a receiver on day 1 or 2, just given what they needed.
This really helps them for the draft. This really helps them attack what they need to in the draft.
I agree. I'm right there with you. Anything else on Palmer before we talk about Michael Hoecht?
No, I've exhausted it.
Copy that. P said Palmer does have this odd habit of mixing his iced tea and lemonade 50-50. Well, good joke. Well done, Pete. I appreciate that. That was a good one. All right, Michael Hoecht. What are your thoughts on Mr. Michael Hoecht?
I was really happy with his tape. I only got to like week 13-ish. Okay. I mean, granted, he doesn't have a ton of snaps, but I really liked his mix of size, movement skills, physicality, effort. I mean, his game is effort and motor. But what's nice about it is, and I feel like I say this about a lot of guys, it's effort and motor without playing recklessly, right? Like, he still plays very, very in control, and he knows what he's doing. Early on, I think there was a game against the Cardinals. I was like, all right, he's just kind of banging his head into the polar, and he's not keeping his eyes up against the run. But then I kind of saw more and more tape, and I was like, okay, that's just because he's facing a polar and he can't just get beat at the point of attack. And
he smashes polars like violently.
Like, that's beautiful. His thing. Like, he really takes it to the polars. And I think this is just part of his game, because then I started watching and I started to see his pass rush plan, and I'm like, I think he tries to set the tone early with his physicality, because he has heavy hands and a lot of strength. Like, he's a very functionally strong player. And I think he tries to set that up early because he has a really good swipe and swim move that comes off of this. I think offensive linemen really think he's going to attack them with a bull rush and with power. And when they gear up for that and they try to get their hands on him, he just swipes and swims around.
He's got a really nice cross chop too. You'll see him set up with that Euro and then bang and pulls himself through.
But it only works because he makes them fear the power first. And I think that's really crucial to, one, just that he has the wherewithal
fear
to
the
understand
power.
That. But you know what I mean? Like, he has the football instincts and intelligence to understand, like, he's not the greatest pass rusher in the world, but he has good hands and heavy hands, and he knows how to sequence them throughout a game to win for his skill set. And I think that really does speak to who he is as a player. But I think, he's really strong at the point of attack, plays with a ton of effort. So he's very good against the run. The way he can deconstruct blocks so efficiently. Like, he's not a stack and shed guy, but like, he can really just kind of play with offensive linemen and think that they're in a comfortable spot, and he just swipes them straight off of him. So he's not going to be an edge bender or anything like that, but he can get around the edge on occasion, but he's going to be more of a pocket pusher if we're talking about him as a pass rusher. But layer this with the Joey Bosa thing, and it's like, well, hopefully if he's a pass rusher, he's going to be doing that, non-hand in the dirt A-gap type of stuff, which is really nice because he's just such a mismatch. Like, I don't want to sit here and say he's a chess piece. Like, he's Derwin James. He's a chess piece. He's a chess piece.
He is just like a lower tier version.
Yeah, he is, but like,
he's not Micah Parsons.
No, like, I don't want him going into coverage, but like, acknowledging how much the Bills use Sims and creepers, I'm like, okay, like, it's fine. Like, I don't mind him dropping into coverage because it's honestly better than what we have. Yeah, like there was a lot of the Lorenzo Alexander comps. I've seen a lot of that because yeah, like he does a lot of different things. Like I don't prefer him off ball, but I understand that it's a thing that you can do with him. I prefer him on the line of scrimmage, either defending the run from the line of scrimmage or rushing the passer. But the alignment versatility and the mismatch piece is really big for me because I think he has the power and speed, the power and movement skills, I'll say, the power and movement skill mix that really can be troublesome for tight ends on the edge. Like he overpowers tight ends.
Yes.
But then tackles, he can still overpower some tackles every now and again. But then if you move him inside and we start talking about what he does head up in the A gap from a 2-point stance, he's just his movement skills. He's a little too quick for guards. Like guards really can't handle his quickness. So I really like the blend of his skill set. There's so many different things to touch, and I hope I hit all of them. And I know you're going to, but like it's so tough to encapsulate his value because he brings it in so many different areas of the field.
Yes.
He's a very hard guy to summarize, but he will be valuable to this team in a way that we don't necessarily know because the Bills are going to have to tweak things to get the most out of him. Like you don't want to leave things on the table with his skill set because he offers a lot in multiplicity and they need to tap into that.
So the biggest thing for me with him, and part of why I liked him, I want to go back to this comment from Charles. Charles says, does Hoecht plus Ryan Nielsen equal a more aggressive, diverse defense? So I've talked about this a bunch this offseason. Why I like the Ryan Nielsen addition, and I know people will be like, oh, he was the Jags defense coordinator and that defense sucked. I don't care. Well, I kind of do, but I kind of don't. For me, it was, I think in like the past August, leading into this past season, I was just like decided to watch some Jesse Bates tape. And I watched I maybe watched like 7 or 8 Falcons games. And the thing that I kept taking away was how awesome the 2023 Falcons sim and creeper pressure
schematically
were. Yeah, schematically on third down, they were just like a nightmare. And that's a defense that was, no disrespect, like didn't have a lot of horses up.
I was just gonna say they couldn't rush the passer.
No, they had they had Grady Jarrett, but not necessarily what he once was. And then a lot of dudes that most people probably can't name at linebacker and up front in 2023. And it was just such a good sim and creeper package. So I saw Nielsen come on. I was like, oh, defensive like assistant. Like, oh, like what does that mean? And then McDermott said he was going to be more focused on the D line. That's where his bread and butter is, yada, yada. Or in his experience or whatever verbiage that he used. And the reason I targeted Hoecht was because, and I've said this for the past couple of years, and you know this, I want the Bills front to be more diverse. It's cool. 4 down, over front, get it. I want more. Like work in some 5 down fronts, work in some tight front stuff, work in different packages and alignments and things and pressure looks. And I get it. If you can just be what Sean McDermott wants, he wants to recreate the 2015 Panthers defense where it's just Jared Allen and Charles Johnson and K'Wan Short and Starla Tulele, and they can just rush 4 and get home and cause havoc and play coverage behind it. I get it. The Bills front, yes, the Bills front does not have that, and they haven't been that. And I also think just with how offenses operate now, you need a little more schematic diversity.
Yeah.
I think Hoecht is a step in that direction because of his skill set, which is tied to, the versatility that he offers. Like the combination of size and athleticism that he brings paired with the violence and technique. Like watching him on one rep, execute a really clean, beautiful cross chop and being able to turn the corner. And then like you go to another game and he's just meeting Penei Sewell head on.
Yeah, that's the first clip I saw of him. It's just blowing up Penei Sewell as a
blowing him up as he pulls on that tackle long trap. Bang.
Yeah.
And then he tackles Gibbs in the backfield. Same thing when he mashes that puller from Green Bay. Bang. Like he is that force player, but he's also trying to go through them. And so to watch the level of technicality, he can be technical. He can be violent. Yeah. Like you can line him up as a 4-3 edge, in typical, like we see 4 down front. Okay. Line him up right off the tackle. You want to play him in a 5 down front and have him play outside the tight end and like a wide 9 and have him mash the tight end and set the edge there. Cool. You want to line him up in the A gap or over the center. Cool. You want to have him line up off ball and then blitz through the A gap or the B gap? Cool. You want him to be a spiker and annihilate a guard so somebody can come clean? Cool. I just like what that skill set was on tape individually as a player. I was like, those are the type of dudes I gravitate toward. You and I have talked ball so
Yeah,
much.
you
like,
always love these type of guys.
yes.
Yeah.
And me philosophically,
This is the Velociraptor. This is
yes, you get me.
Well, it's been like 4 years.
That's fair. Like, I want dudes who play like Velociraptors and have Velociraptor blood.
He is that.
And he is that. And if I could build a defense, my defense would be more of like a 3-4 hybrid type of defense where similar to kind of like, I guess, modern football, like Georgia's defense in college, where you've got these guys like, okay, like who's rushing, who's dropping, what can you do? And I recognize you need the body types for that. And it's harder in the NFL. But I just don't like being static anywhere on defense. Like, I don't want you to know what coverage I'm playing. I don't want you to know who's rushing. I don't want you to know who's dropping, who's doing what. And in order to do that, you need to have the body types for it. And I think Hoecht is a move in that direction, to Charles's point, or question, I should say, and a large reason why I liked him. And, you mentioned a bunch of those pieces as well. I just think he gives you a lot of versatility. I don't think he's this player I don't think he's an athletic marvel. And I don't think he's a jack of all trades, master of none, but I do think he's closer to that than being like a real plus matchup in any one area. But what I like about him is, I would say his plus matchup is just violence. Like, and I say violence from
functional strength, just like,
but
also mentality.
Yes.
It's a combination of
the way he plays the game. And again, like I said, dirt, sandpaper, violence. I thought the Bills needed more of that up front. I want somebody on this defensive line who can beat the hell out of a tight end or a tackle or a guard or a center. And then you throw in the fun little things of like I put it down in the clip, one of the clip packages I put out this morning. Like, against the Patriots, they run
when he blows up the drag.
Yeah, from Hunter Henry, right?
Yeah.
He drops into coverage and into like the hook curl, but he legitimately looks to his right, sees that the number one is going vertical. His eyes get back to Henry and he drives on it. Like, he makes a, like, it's not.
That's when I came back to earth on like, okay, I guess he can be in coverage.
Yes. Now,
at that point, I was like, please don't put him in coverage.
Yeah, don't do it. Like, now his movement in space and in coverage isn't great. Like, the base and the feet, he's not some like super fluid. Again, he's not Micah Parsons in space, but he didn't make that play by accident. No, like, he's legitimately reading and within his responsibility, and then clicking, closing, and detonates on Henry and forces the incompletion.
That was an impressive play from him.
Yes. And I like that because, again, you get into third down stuff. So you're taking this guy. Is he rushing off the edge? How wide is he rushing from? Is he rushing from off ball? Is he dropping into coverage? Like, this, the closest I think the Bills will get towards like chaos manufacturing on third down is simulated in creepers and then creative 5-man pressures. Like, that's what that's where I think they can go. I think they need to go that way. I want them to go that way. And I think Hoecht is a significant step just because you can put him in so many spots on first, second, or third down and get creative with him. And I just really like that signing. I thought the contract was good. What am I, 3 years, $24 million?
Yeah. 8 per year. Yeah. And it's probably another 2+1.
Yes. And I think I saw the breakdown, or I saw a projection for it, and it was very favorable. Yeah. And especially now, like you said, you put it in lockstep with the Bosa news. I love it even more. Now you've just got Groot and Hoecht, who can just beat the hell out of anybody off the edge. You've got Epinesa, who's grown into a role as a good first and second down player from an efficiency metric standpoint and has improved versus the run. I would still like some more pass rush pop, but whatever. He's an edge 3. I think Hoecht can be a 2. Groot's your 1. And then Bosa is your 1 as the pass rusher. And then you've got Javon Solomon, who you're hoping can develop. I just think the edge grouping is really panned out nicely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, on the versatility point, I think what gets so exciting beyond creepers and sims is also like the spy packages that they were using against the Chiefs. It was like the only thing that was working against the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Oh, like the odd mirror stuff that they do, like what Georgia does, yeah.
And now you can add Hoecht to the mix and do like 5-man front odd mirror stuff. And it's like,
bro,
is it Milano? Is it Hoecht as a spy? Like, look, I'm not saying Hoyt's a better spy than Milano because athletically I'd rather have Milano, but you add a wrinkle. Like that is a viable wrinkle where he's not a drop off. I mean, he's a drop off as an athlete in that role, but he
Yes.
can do it to the point where it's like you're not dropping off to full on liability. Like he could play
Yes.
that spy role violently and shoot to the quarterback similar to what Milano does. And I think that is value. Like we need to find different ways to play those third downs because there's too many times where the defense wins on first and second down, and you got to get Mahomes off the field. You got to
Yes.
get Joe Burrow off the field. You got to get Lamar Jackson off the field. But
And Hoyt can
you
be
can't do it vanilla. Like
no.
it has to have a wrinkle because
Yes.
it's to the point of the Carolina team. Like we just don't have those horses. But like if you start looking at it and you're like, okay, so let's play like 3 tight hand in the dirt defensive tackles: Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Joey Bosa, and then someone off the edge. I don't know. Maybe Bosa's more off the edge, and then Hoyt's also off the edge, and it's Daquan Jones in the middle with Ed Oliver. And you have those 3: Rousseau, Daquan, and Ed Oliver, hand in the dirt, and then Hoyt and Bosa 2-point stance.
Stand up off.
Right? But you still have Bernard and Milano off ball. You don't know who's coming, who's going.
Yep.
You could be sending 5, you could be sending 3, you could be sending 4, you could be dropping
idea.
8, you could be dropping 7. You don't know who's coming, who's going. There's so many permutations too of how you can execute that as a defense, not just like how to confuse the offense, but also just like as a defense, how you want to execute that just to be optimal on your own side. I just think he creates so many possibilities for this defense, and it's very exciting because I think you hit it briefly, but he's sneaky a 3-down player.
Yeah. Oh, no, he 100% is.
When you watch him right off the rip, you're like, oh, this is a 2-down run stopper. He'll just play a role, which is probably true to an extent. Like that will probably be his predominant role, but they have to find ways to get him on the field for third down because he's an asset, but they need to figure out exactly how they're going to maximize that ability.
Yes, I like that. I want to answer 2 quick comments from the chat. Jay Mew says, Anthony, what would you think of adding Calais Campbell next? I would welcome Calais Campbell with open arms. He defies age.
Yeah.
He continues to ball out. He was good in Atlanta 2 seasons ago. He was good in Miami this past year. And I just want anything on the interior. I would take him over Dwayne Carter right now. Yeah, I would take Calais Campbell. Al says, Epinesa, a good run defender? ? I know I mentioned this a couple times. Out of 127 qualifying edges against the run in 2024, AJ Epinesa was tied for 16th in stops, and he was 24th in run stop percentage. So he played like an edge 2 against the run. Pass rush productivity went down, which is significantly down for him when it was up the year before. But yeah, he's sneakily and quietly turned into a pretty good run defender from a sound perspective and from even an advanced metrics and efficiency perspective. But to your point, yeah, like even with the odd mirror stuff, like he can be the guy off the edge to get the quarterback off the spot, like that aggressive dude crashing, or you could get a little creative and drop him. Like there's so many, like you said, permutations, I think is a great word. And so my thought of with it when they made that signing, my thought this morning was like, okay, is this a breadcrumb towards a more diverse front? Or is it just like, hey, we like this guy and we could do some stuff with him, but we're probably just going to use him as like a 4-3 edge and let him kind of do his thing. The Bosa signing is interesting and doesn't necessarily move it in one direction or the other. I think we'll end up seeing kind of just more Sims and creepers and traditional 4-down front stuff.
Probably.
I hope though we get more, give me some more 5-down stuff a little bit. Just give me some more creativity. And 5-down doesn't necessarily mean you have to rush all 5. Like you can drop Hoyt into the curled flats or the hook curls or do whatever. Like there is schematic possibility with Hoyt that I like. And man, for me, it's a really fun signing. Like I just like him schematically, and it just ties to, like you said, I do think there is 3-down potential there for him. I think he can be violent and mash against the run on first and second down. And then on third, I kind of like him in the let him be kind of like that amoeba defender where like all like
Yes.
as the defense is coming to the line or the offense is coming to the line, he's like,
Don't give him a spot.
yeah, he's lining up over the center and then he starts to move over the guard and then he runs to the edge and he rushes, or it's vice versa. You kind of just drop him all over the place. And I don't think he's another guy that I think is a piece to the puzzle, but
Yes.
opens up your menu a little
Yes.
bit more because of what he can do. And I thought the cost was very reasonable given what he can be. Yeah, and then you put it in lockstep with hopefully a healthy Bosa, and you've instantly become better against the run and more versatile up front, which is nice. And I think that's a win. And then his pass rush stuff is cool, and how it pieces together with the Bosa news, I think is also cool. And I'm a big fan of this move.
I'm really liking the offseason so far. I think that just having Josh Palmer at the sticker price was a little much at first. I was like, oh boy,
Yes.
I don't love where this offseason's going.
I saw the news. I was like, oh, cool. And then I kept reading the contract and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I was like, oh boy, we're going to have to spend on the margins even more than I thought. Like, how are we going to, make moves to make it easier for us in the draft? But, as time plays out, they found ways. Like, Hoyt is a really good value play, and then you pair that with Bosa, which is whatever you think of what he's going to contribute this year. Like, it's a good value risk. And I really like the way that they're attacking this market. Like, if they do go another 1 year, whatever, 10 million for Calais Campbell, like that's another really smart value play. It's just, no, they're not splashy. I guess Joey Bosa is splashy, but numbers wise, like, no, these aren't splashy signings, but it's really smart what it's doing for the roster and how it's setting you up for the draft. I really, really enjoy what they're doing this year. It's very calculated. I think what you said about Hoyt and how he's a piece of the puzzle and how he opens up the menu, I kind of feel very similarly about Palmer and what he does opening up the menu for the wide receiver room. He's not Amari Cooper, but how we brought in Amari Cooper and he opened up the menu for the offense, I think Palmer gives you a little bit of that. And I just think both of those guys are very smart value signings that open up the menu for the team as a whole, personnel-wise and schematically.
I think even Bosa a little like opens up the menu a little bit too, but I think is more of like a splash, but also not like crazy. Like if he gets hurt again and turns in, like you're signing him hoping he can give you some, production, obviously, but even if it doesn't work out, it's a 1 year. It's not a crazy overpay. They didn't give him Khalil Max 18 million or 20. Like it can go up to 50. I have no problem giving him 12 mil. And even just the one of the big things for me with Vaughn was, his efficiency metrics looked great last year. But I thought when you watch the tape, he had some free runner stuff, but more importantly than that, most of his production from a pressure standpoint came in like 3 games. Like he had, I think, 5 against Arizona, then 4 against Miami, 4 against Jacksonville. So 13 of his like 30 something pressures came in like 3 games. Aside from that, he had a bunch of like no pressures, 1 pressure, 2 pressures, no pressures, like kind of breaking it up.
Yeah.
And even just looking at Bosa's last year, so from week 3 through week 8, he had nothing because he was banged up. And then coming back out of that, 2 pressures, 1 pressure. But then down the stretch when he started to get a little healthier from week 11 through the wild card round, 8 pressures, 3 pressures, 3 pressures, 5 pressures, no pressures, 3 pressures, 3 pressures, 3 pressures, 5 pressures.
Yeah.
Like this is somebody
impacting the game.
And if you get somebody who is on, I'm not saying pitch count, but you get him in more of a rotation base where he doesn't have to do the heavy lifting on early downs and he doesn't have to extend himself having to play the run to earn the right to rush the quarterback.
Yeah.
Again, like I think I like the way the edge grouping has come across.
I do too.
I am content with where they are right now. I thought edge was a big need this year. I thought they needed to change the room. And with Bosa, you've got athleticism, but you've got technicality and you've got a hunter, somebody who can go out and do all the things that you need in a little bit of different areas. And if he stays healthy, bro, like you've got a guy who when healthy is a top 10 edge in this league.
Yeah.
Maybe now if he's diminished a little bit, top 15. Like, he's still an edge 1 as a pass rusher if he's healthy. And then it's the domino effect and the force multiplier effect of what that means for Groot, what that means for Hoyt, what that means for Epinesa. Yeah, it's yeah. I still can't believe it broke again while we were live.
No, I know that part is.
I thought they were kidding in the chat, and I was like, "Come on!" Like, or they.
I just saw your face light up, and I was like, "What's
You know what's funny though?
right
I
now?
am just as excited I was for that. I am significantly distraught that Roy Lopez signed with another team.
The duality of
I really wanted him, and I thought he was a good fit. I mean, he's a little bit. I think from an archetype standpoint, they probably want more pass rush juice.
I was gonna
say about the
yeah.
interior. But yeah, well, maybe Darius Alexander from Toledo. We'll see who's on the menu at the interior there.
Yeah, I was gonna say our eyes shift directly to cornerback and defensive tackle.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's full steam ahead right now for corner in round 1 or defensive tackle in round 1. Again, I'm still planting the flag for Trey Amos right now. That is who I want at pick 30 right now, or it could be defensive tackle, depending on who falls. I'm not opposed to either. I think there's a lot of ways that it could really work out for them. Anything else on Hoyt or Palmer?
No, that's all I got, man. I feel like we covered a lot, and I think Bills fans should really be happy about those 2 signings.
Man, I still can't believe they made another signing like that while we were live.
It's so crazy. I'm like so antsy to start watching Bosa film.
Dude, it took everything I had to not be like, yeah, so here's a conversation. All right, goodbye. I got to go watch film now.
Sorry, guys. That's our instant reaction, and later.
Hey, man, this is cool. Yeah, thank you so much. Goodbye. Anything on anything you would like going forward, or anything that you may have left in the holster, the chamber, your notes that we didn't get to tonight as of now because the news.
No, nothing in the notes, but I like definitely just like my eyes are right on defensive tackle and corner in the sense that I just want them to get a high floor value signing. Like, not even just for the draft. Like, I want them to make sure that there's something there at both positions going into the draft, whatever it is. I like, even looking at last year, like the Mike Edwards signing, as poorly as it panned out for us, right? But like, make a signing like that, just so you don't feel like you have
give me Mike Edwards, but like one that works.
One that like, might play a snap. But
yeah, might do something.
But you know what I mean in concept. It's just like, get something at either of those positions at value in free agency. And that's just, it's what Brandon Beane has conditioned me to feel for the last like 5 off seasons. So Absolutely. I want him to go and do that now. I want him to show me who's that value signing at defensive tackle that I can get excited about, jump into the tape for him. Who's that value signing at cornerback that, won't preclude us from drafting a corner early, but also makes us feel a little bit safer at the position. I'd like to get that for both. And if we can get one for safety as well, that'd be a nice bonus. But those are the 3 positions that I'm just like squared in on.
Fair. I agree, especially after what they've done so far to this point. Yeah. The corner market is so tough now. I even see where did RJ said we really need a CB2 in free agency, and then we can BPA the draft. I like this idea in theory. I just don't think there's a CB2 in free agency left. It's really just Asante Samuel Jr. at this point. And there's some health stuff from an injury standpoint with the Stinger injury I mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago. We'll see for that. Plus, he does have to clean up some of his tackling, which is an important part of this defense. I still love him, and I'd take him in a heartbeat. But the CB2, like legit CB2 market is a little scary. So, Kendall, to your point, I'm kind of in lockstep with you a bit of like, give me more of the depth signing at defensive tackle. I do think CB2 has to come from the draft at this point.
Yeah, probably.
RJ says, could we just go get Asante Samuel Jr. then? Oh, real quick, I want to talk about this. Jay Mew says Asante Samuel Jr. won't tackle. Hard disagree. I've got him on tape. I put stuff out. He is a very willing tackler. His tackling issues are twofold. Some of it is due to the size and frame limitations that he has. But the majority of it, I would say probably like 65-35. The majority of it is due to his approach to it and then the finishing at the tackle point and the execution, I should say. He is more than a willing tackler against running backs, against wide receivers, but it's still an issue. Like, he's going to miss tackles. That's why I think it can be cleaned up a little bit, because the want to is there. The aggression is there. The short area burst and the trigger is there. He just needs to be better in the technique and the technicality. But it is a hindrance to your point, Jamie. It was like, that is a fair point. But yeah, that corner market is rough, especially with what corners are getting paid now. Even with what Fulton got paid, I was like, oof.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, and what he got from a guaranteed perspective. So I do think it's more of like a high-end CB3, low-end 2, who just gives you a high-end floor. And
Dane
then
Jackson, baby.
Yeah, honestly, like, that's kind of what it is. And then you go corner in round 1.
Yeah.
But I do think that's the spot. Right now, it's full steam ahead for corner. Defensive tackle needs attention. Like, right now, it is it's Ed, Daquan, Dwayne Carter, and then Logue, and I forget who else. But you're essentially looking at Ed and Daquan right now. I'm still, waiting until 3 years to make a hard stance on a rookie, but I'm out on Dwayne Carter right now. So I think the Bills need 2 defensive tackles, not just 1. And I think Daquan is built more to be a number 3. So I think you need a legit starter opposite of Ed Oliver to let Daquan be a rotation guy more than anything. So I know, I'm sorry, Joe loves Dwayne Carter. I'm sorry. I knew you were gonna have a sad face because I knew you were still here. I'm sorry. But yeah, defensive tackle is a big need. You technically need a starter. CB2, you definitely need one. So the full steam ahead. And then safety, yeah, like, man, if Starks falls, somebody asked me about Nick Emenwari in the chat, and I forgot where it was. So I'm not pulling it up. Josh, there it is. He said, Anthony, would you take Nick Emenwari if he fell? If I was the Bills, no.
Yeah,
I don't think he's a fit. I think he's more of a in and around the line of scrimmage type of safety, maybe even like a sub package. Like, he's more of like a sub package linebacker than he is like a deep safety to me, which can be sweet. I just question the fit for the Bills. And I also don't think, for as athletic as he is and how well he tested, I don't think he plays that way on tape. I didn't come away from any of the games that I watched being like, this guy just jumps off the screen with his athleticism and size. And like, he's not overly physical. The athleticism doesn't necessarily always show up. I do think he's a good player, but I think the right fit is going to be very, very, very important for him. And I don't think that right fit exists with the Bills. Malachi Starks, on the other hand, gimme. Anything else, Kendall, before we say goodbye to the people?
No, man, that's all. I'm really excited to see how these dominoes.
I'm jealous that it's West Coast for you and it's only 8 o'clock and you can just watch so much tape. I might be up till like 2-3 a.m.
I gotta wake up at 5 to beat traffic.
That's true. Yeah, I feel you. I get up at 5:30 every day, so I'm in a similar boat.
I only have about an hour for tape.
Yeah, that's fair. Where is? I almost clicked the wrong button. One Pie Pizza. I mentioned it in the intro. The best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni, great cheese to sauce ratio. That was for Joe DeRosa. A homemade blue cheese that is absolutely splendid. They also do catering options. They have a whole bunch of good mac and cheeses that I did it for a catering for an event last summer. It was amazing. They truly do make a tremendous amount of food, and tremendous quality that they have in their food, pizza regardless. But the pizza is awesome. They have a pizza named after the brand and the show here, which is awesome. I really do think they're the best pizza in Buffalo. And I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they're the best pizza in Buffalo. And like I say every week, they're good people. Partnering with Roswell every year to try and knock out cancer, the SPCA stuff, the Alzheimer's Foundation stuff, the Toys for Tots stuff. Yeah, as Paisan says, an equal amount of pepperoni on each pizza. Buff Bills 83 says homemade blue cheese. Sign me up. The blue cheese is so good. And the pizza is so good. Sometimes I don't know if like I'm using the pizza as just a vehicle to get the blue cheese into my mouth. Like, either way, it's just banging. Online menu and all the details can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. If you enjoyed this episode on whatever platform, YouTube, actually, we'll start with YouTube. If you're still watching live, which a lot of you folks are, please, and thank you. If you have not already, drop a like on this video. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. Please, and thank you. Drop a like on this video here on YouTube. If you have not already, please, and thank you. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist here on YouTube. Subscribe to the Cover One channel where we have various levels of Bills content pretty much every single day of the week. If you're listening to this show on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too and very much appreciated. Please rate and review and subscribe on the podcasting apps and platforms. Whoever one is your poison, Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever have you. Please, 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 and thank you. Rate, review, subscribe on the audio stuff. Drop a like here on YouTube. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show was. If you thought this show was terrible, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day by making them watch this show. Really appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. I know, obviously, the Bosa news, absolutely crazy. Thank you very much to Jason for your super chats. I missed this one from Patton. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much for your super chat, Patton. Patton says, Ed, so I don't know, Kendall, if you know this. So I used to make the jokes all the time.
Oh, no, I remember this.
Yeah, the Edgeman stuff. But Patton uses it for everything.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be like, oh, man, like a sunny day today. He'll be like, yeah, but is it sunny enough to move Tremaine to edge? And I like the verbiage here with Edgeman's got Bo sacked. And he says it's a work in progress.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. There's something.
I like that. That's very well done. This is hope you are enjoying the offseason, fellas. We are. Thank you very much, Patton, for being here. I'm so sorry I missed the super chat, but thank you very much for your super chat. Thank you, Justin, for your super chat. Just the Tippy Canoe, Carl, and then Mr. J Blonde 2012. Appreciate you folks for your super chat, for being here. Hope you folks enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much, obviously, to Kendall for riding with me for 2 hours on this episode and just being able to pivot because, like we had a couple of years ago, huge news dropped with Kendall and I doing the free agency reaction stream. So this was pretty cool. I hope you folks had a good time. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. Rate, review, subscribe, word of mouth, likes, all that kind of stuff. Shilling out and selling out for all that stuff. Appreciate you folks. If there was anything we didn't get to on the show, or questions, thoughts, whatever you got, leave it in the comments on YouTube or get at me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. Get at me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores there, just PROANT. I hope you and your family, friends, and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. Again, thank you to everybody tuning in live, post live, watching, listening, whatever have you. This was super fun. Hope you guys had a great time. And again, very much and many thanks to Mr. Kendall Mirsky for making this show awesome every time he stops by. Kendall, it was awesome talking ball with you and chopping it up. Likewise. Appreciate you. Godspeed, folks. See you next week, Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of Disguise Coverage. Tune into the film room tomorrow. Eric and I have a very special guest who may be a new Buffalo Bill. It's not Bosa. I don't want to put that in. It's potentially someone else. So either see you for the film room or see you next week for another episode of Disguise Coverage. Until then, I like that. Jim says we need to find you a muffin sponsor who only sells blueberries. That's fair. I like that. Way to tie in the intro. I appreciate you for that. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.